Lin Feng didn't continue his training in the stormy gorge. Instead he decided to leave the gorge and was once again standing at the top of the cliff looking down upon the gorge. Lin Feng didn't continue his training in the stormy gorge. Instead he decided to leave the gorge and was once again standing at the top of the cliff looking down upon the gorge. Looking down into the gorge he could see it was a boundless canyon as far as the eye could see. There were thousands of people inside training. It was a place filled with endless battles and cultivation. That was the Yunhai sect's culture which bred the strongest cultivators. Here you would be beaten to within an inch of life and forced to climb back to the sect with your broken body. Only the strong will thrive here and the weak will be the fertilizer for the strong to grow. Lin Feng walked around the canyon outside the stormy gorge and to his surprise came across some of his friends. He was happy to see Han Man and Jing Yun again so quickly. Lin Feng, shouted Jing Yun. She couldn't hold in her excitement meeting Lin Feng again. Jing Yun, how is it possible that you are even more beautiful than the last time I saw you, said Lin Feng complimenting her while smiling sheepishly. In comparison with a few days before, Jing Yun really had become even more beautiful and pure. Lin Feng knew it was because of the beauty pills, but he never would have thought it would have such a great effect. Jing Yun blushed when she heard Lin Feng and couldn't help but look away. She said in a soft voice, "Why are you bringing that up?" "Ha, Lin Feng, you have to be less bold, Jing Yun is still very shy," said Han Man straightforward as always. "Lin Feng, we were initially getting prepared to come and look for you and never thought we would bump into you so soon." "Come look for me." "Why? What's going on?" asked Lin Feng. "Lin Feng, did you reach the 8th Qi layer when you ate your share of profound pills?" Han Man was looking forward to seeing Lin Feng as he had killed a hell wolf when he was still at the 7th Qi layer. He was surely going to be even more shockingly powerful after having reached the 8th Qi layer. "Yes, I had a breakthrough recently." "How about you guys?" said Lin Feng while smiling. "If an ignorant fool like me could reach the 8th Qi layer so quickly, obviously a monstrous talent like you would have," said Han Man while grinning. "Jing Yun hasn't reached it yet as she needs some more time before she can advance to the next level. Qing Yi hasn't come out yet either, but he should be at the bottleneck for advancement." Lin Feng nodded. Even though Han Man had a carefree behavior, he cultivated a little bit more efficiently than Jing Yun and Qing Yi, so it was normal for him to be the first one to reach the 8th Qi layer. "Han Man, you still haven't told me why you were looking for me." Han Man scratched his head and felt slightly embarrassed, which left Lin Feng speechless. "Lin Feng, I have also reached the 8th Qi layer. I want to go to the stormy gorge and test my strength, but I may get massacred by cruel cultivators. I wanted to ask you to accompany me, and only if we encounter a strong and merciless disciple will you need to get involved. I am a guy who can endure a beating or two." Han Man was grinning while asking Lin Feng for his help. Lin Feng directly understood what Han Man meant and would only need to get involved if a life was on the line. He of course wouldn't refuse the request of such a good friend. "When do you want to go?" "Tomorrow we can head out. I want to prepare some masks first." Han Man saw that Lin Feng didn't hesitate at all when he gave his answer. He felt even more admiration for Lin Feng as he was a true friend. Not only was this guy abnormally strong, but he also had no arrogance at all. He didn't argue about anything and always kept things fair between them. He was the one who had killed almost all the ferocious beasts back in the Black Wind Mountain, yet he had insisted to share the items equally with everyone involved. "No problem. Just give me a shout when you're ready to go," said Lin Feng straightforwardly. People who enter the gorge all chose to wear a mask, which Lin Feng originally did not know. The reason many chose to enter was in order to fight other disciples. Losing was a disgrace and winning could cause a blood feud. Wearing a mask was a way to overcome all of these issues. "I also want to come. Lin Feng can stay by my side at all times and protect me. I know I will be safe with him by my side," said Jing Yun in a charming yet innocent voice. Lin Feng was stupefied. Both Han Man and Lin Feng were staring at Jing Yun wide-eyed. Was this really the shy girl from before? Why are you two looking at me like that? Said Jing Yun, glancing at them and stamping softly on the ground. It's nothing, don't worry, said Lin Feng, smiling and continuing as if nothing had happened. Lin Feng and Han Man thought it was strange to see her so bold while still acting like a cute and innocent child. Han Man was looking at Jing Yun, confused at the change he had seen. He had been really dumbfounded to hear Jing Yun say she wanted Lin Feng to protect her. How fearless was she to be so direct? Alright, you can come with us too. We should be discreet and not go looking for trouble, said Lin Feng, quickly analyzing the situation before agreeing. There were many extremely talented cultivators down in the gorge, and to some extent it was frequented by elite disciples. Elite disciples were all relatively proud and aloof. They would refrain from attacking ordinary disciples without being provoked. So with Lin Feng's help, they were convinced that they could go down in the gorge without getting into too much trouble. Elite disciples could kill other disciples without repercussions from the sect. They had the power to do as they pleased. Lin Feng had the bad luck of accidentally coming across both a ranked disciple who wanted to hunt him down and a pompous elite disciple. His luck really was terrible. After having all the details confirmed, they all departed in different directions. Lin Feng went back to his room and continued to cultivate without stopping to sleep. Seeing how weak he was compared to others, had strengthened his willpower, and he felt a flame ignite in his body as if it was screaming for him to be the strongest. The morning after, Han Man had come to pick up Lin Feng, and they both immediately left to go and meet Jing Yun. The Yunhai sect was extremely large. The ordinary disciples' rooms covered several districts, and this area was the size of a small town. Lin Feng and Han Man arrived to the place where they had agreed to meet with Jing Yun. They saw that Jing Yun's face was pale and worried. There was a young boy standing in front of her, talking with an evil look on his face. Jing Yun, what's the matter? Lin Feng asked while approaching at an increased speed. Get lost, you piece of trash. Can't you see that I'm talking to Jing Yun? What makes you think you have the right to interrupt me? Said the young boy to Lin Feng while narrowing his eyes. He knew Lin Feng in the past and would often join in bullying him. Lin Feng, you are finally here, said Jing Yun to Lin Feng, smiling at him and ignoring the young disciple's remark. Shall we go? Said Lin Feng mockingly while not even looking at the young boy. Han Man, Lin Feng, and Jing Yun all turned to leave without even glancing back at the young disciple. Wait, Han Man, Jing Yun, said the young boy while grabbing Jing Yun's sleeve to stop her from leaving. Get lost. Can't you see we have something to do? What makes you think you have the right to interrupt me? Lin Feng said, throwing the young disciple's words back at him while knocking his hand away from Jing Yun. Powerful waves shot from Lin Feng's palm directly towards the young disciple. The power contained in this small action had caused the young boy, who was at the 7th Qi layer, to crash into the floor several meters away and spit out a mouthful of fresh blood. He looked at Lin Feng, gasping with astonishment. Get lost, you piece of trash, said Lin Feng, which shocked as it was a slap in the face. Lin Feng didn't stop in the slightest and continued to walk away. When had the piece of trash, Lin Feng, become so fierce? That disciple sure acts rashly. Jing Yun, who is he? Asked Han Man to Jing Yun. Jing Yun's face got tense when she heard the question. She looked at Lin Feng and Han Man and said, he was saying that he saw the beheaded body of Jing Feng in the Black Wind Mountain, and it was clear that it had been done by a sword technique. Jing Feng's big brother, Jing Hao, is now searching for those who were with Jing Feng. He had come to threaten me with this information. Han Man was stupefied. No wonder Jing Yun had lost all color from her face. If he comes, then he comes. Let fate take its course and do not worry about the small problems, said Lin Feng, who was remarkably calm. Considering that he is not an elite disciple within the sect, he would not dare attack us while within the sect's territory. We have to be a little bit more careful in the stormy gorge to avoid unnecessary conflicts, said Han Man while nodding in agreement with Lin Feng. It did not take long for the group of 3 to arrive at the stormy gorge. Lin Feng had arrived in much less time than when he was hiding his power. He was actually shocked at his own speed. Inside the gorge they had spotted a fortress made of solid compact earth. That earth fortress was covering a huge area. It looked like dozens of ordinary people could live in there with ample room. Even though it was made of earth, there was no doubt that it was completely sturdy. It looked like even a strong raging storm would cause no damage to this fortress. In the stormy gorge it was common for a disciple to create a dwelling, but this one was unique. Han Man touched the fortress. There was no dust from deterioration and no sticky feeling from the earth absorbing the rain. They really had no idea how such a fortress had been built. At that moment a silhouette emerged from the earth fortress. It was a person who was also wearing a mask and was cautiously exiting his dwelling. The person glanced at Lin Feng and the two others momentarily, then in a panic left at full speed, which stupefied everyone present. Lin Feng and the others understood what had happened. They all looked at each other and smiled. People in the stormy gorge were not weak and had all reached the 7th or 8th Qi layer as a minimum, some had reached levels even higher. There were many different skills practiced by thousands of disciples in this gorge, and it would be common to find previously unencountered skills. Under those circumstances, who would not retreat when encountering a group of 3 people who suddenly approached? Did those 3 people come together with cruel intentions towards the disciple who was alone? This kind of thing was not rare in the stormy gorge. "It looks like we have to separate or we will scare many people away," said Lin Feng while smiling and moving away. The most important thing was for Han Man to gain experience in combat. Lin Feng just had to stay back and make sure there were no unexpected dangers. Today's sponsored dosage is brought to you by Gary R. Special thanks to him for supporting my work and all of your reading addictions. Hugs and kisses. Today's sponsored dosage is brought to you by Gary R. Special thanks to him for supporting my work and all of your reading addictions. Hugs and kisses. It's currently quite late here. I woke up to get a glass of water and saw this, so decided to give you an earlier release. My second proofread may not be perfect as I have just done it half asleep, sat here in my PJs. My toes are freezing. Enjoy. Thank you all for supporting this series. XOXO Jing Yun continued to stay close to Lin Feng's side. She was only at the 7th Qi layer and was too weak for her to be left alone. The 7th Qi layer was the lowest level in the stormy gorge, so that wasn't adequate for her to go out and battle other disciples. Han Man understood Lin Feng's intentions by leaving him alone. If Lin Feng was constantly at his side protecting him, then he wouldn't be able to fight and gain experience at all. It was crucial for him to rely on his own strength from this point onward. Walking alone in the stormy gorge did not require much time before someone approached him. He could see the person's eyes through the mask, which revealed a clear intention to fight. There was no time for an exchange of words. The disciple immediately charged into Han Man while raising his fist, emanating a powerful qi. "How unlucky, Han Man has run into a cultivator of the 9th Qi layer," said Lin Feng while smiling and observing from a distance. Han Man had already guessed his opponent's level from the powerful qi that he was releasing from his fist. He had no time to worry about the difference in strength. He concentrated the qi of his entire body into his fist and then released all the strength he had in one strike while giving a loud and powerful shout. The power of this punch had made Han Man step back a few meters while his opponent hadn't moved a single inch. It was as if his fist had struck against an iron wall, and it was obvious from a single exchange which of them was stronger. 8th Qi layer. "You're so weak. I thought I could gain some experience." "How disappointing, I'm leaving," said the opponent in an apathetic tone. He then turned around and started leaving. He had lost interest in Han Man. Many cultivators found joy and pleasure in being cruel and merciless. However, those who were serious towards the path of cultivation found no pleasure in acting cruel without provocation and would be more focused towards strengthening themselves. Those disciples found satisfaction in fighting opponents of a similar level, and to some degree fighting opponents even stronger than themselves would help them gain insight. This was a way for them to really challenge themselves and unlock their potential while getting much needed battle experience. Wait, wait! Han Man shouted. He had come to the stormy gorge for the first time today. How could he accept being defeated that quickly? He immediately released the power of his spirit. A yellowish-brown light started floating around his entire body as if he was in symbiosis with the earth beneath his feet, and his chi energy began to grow in strength. Earth spirit, said the opponent, showing a sudden interest, and right after said, "Your spirit is not bad, let me see if you can take my 3 profound punches." After the opponent finished his sentence, he took a single leap and appeared in front of Han Man. Boom! The yellowish-brown color which was surrounding Han Man suddenly emitted an extremely radiant light as dust filled the air around them. Han Man was propelled 6 steps backwards while blood started oozing from the corner of his mouth. Seeing the opponent ready to leave once again. "Come back," said Han Man while wiping the blood from the corner of his mouth. His bravery could reach the heavens as he continued to stand firm, his fighting spirit was soaring. The yellowish-brown light surrounding his body was shining brighter and brighter as if he was draining all the power from the very land itself. Kaboom! Han Man was propelled 8 steps backwards while his opponent was propelled 3 steps backwards. "Delightful," said his opponent. His fist started glowing with a white light, and then he warned Han Man, "Be careful, I'm going to use one of my strongest skills on this punch." "All right," replied Han Man while starting to charge towards his opponent. Each of his steps was making the ground violently shake, like a powerful warhorse galloping at full speed towards battle. "Use the strength that you have borrowed from the earth," shouted Lin Feng while watching from a distance, completely captivated by the battle. He wouldn't have thought that Han Man would understand how to use his spirit in such a unique way. Combining the power of his earth spirit and the earth beneath his feet could greatly increase his strength. Boom! Their 2 fists collided. A cloud of dust shot in all directions from the shock wave between Han Man and his opponent, making it impossible to see what had happened. When the cloud of dust had vanished, Han Man was sitting on the ground meditating. "You unexpectedly understood what that other disciple said." "Well done," said his opponent while smiling and getting up from the ground. He also had blood coming from the corner of his mouth. He hadn't expected Han Man's last attack to be so powerful. He had been slightly injured, but it was worth it for him. He had gained valuable insights thanks to this fight. He didn't spend more time with Han Man and immediately vanished into the distance. "What an interesting guy," said Lin Feng while moving towards Han Man. He felt a degree of respect for the disciple Han Man had just battled with. He was an honorable fellow. Lin Feng and Jing Yun obviously knew that Han Man had learnt more about his spirit and gained an insight into his cultivation path. They didn't want to disturb him, so they sat next to him and waited for him to finish gaining his insight. That fight had enlightened Han Man. What had just happened was a rare moment of divine enlightenment. It wouldn't be surprising if Han Man's strength started increasing at lightning speeds once he fully understood his new insight. Lin Feng and Jing Yun admired him. He had entered the stormy gorge and had a flash of realization right after his first battle. A short while after, Han Man's body suddenly started emitting a strong qi, stupefying Lin Feng and Jing Yun, who looked at each other gasping with astonishment. The strength is so powerful and unique that it gives a deep and oppressing feeling. "Is this really the power of enlightenment?" thought Lin Feng. The path of cultivation was a vast, and there were many different routes to take within cultivation. Lin Feng had only just started walking on the path of cultivation. He couldn't imagine how powerful some cultivators were, and he knew that these strong cultivators could destroy mountains or crush entire cities in their way with ease. It's said that cultivators upon reaching the level of immortals can fly into the heavens and penetrate into the depths of the earth. These cultivators would have an unlimited lifespan and could move at speeds faster than light. Lin Feng could only envy, as such power could only be imagined by someone like him who had never experienced it. He wondered if he would ever be able to fly into the heavens and look down upon the world. While Lin Feng was lost thought, someone in the distance was coming towards them at incredible speed. When he saw Han Man, who had just made a huge step on the path of cultivation, he laughed mockingly. "Wake up," said an ear-splitting voice, making the atmosphere vibrate and shocking Lin Feng and the others into awareness. Wah! Shouted Han Man, who spat out a mouthful of blood and started breathing heavily. His eyes turned red in anger as he was staring at the distant silhouette. He had the feeling he was beginning to understand the concept of his new strength, but when he heard the voice it had interrupted his breakthrough. Besides, the deafening voice had shaken his defenseless body so much that he was spitting out blood. How insolent, said Lin Feng with eyes filled with killing intent. He was staring at the silhouette in the horizon. That person had intentionally addressed Han Man and interrupted his flash of enlightenment, causing damage to Han Man's body. Han Man walked towards the silhouette and asked furiously, "Why did you interrupt me?" "No reason, I just did it for fun." The person was not wearing a mask and had a teasing smile on their face. None of them had seen this disciple before or heard of someone so mischievous. "You did this for fun," said Han Man while walking forwards, rage spreading throughout his body. He understood how rare the flash of enlightenment was, but that person had voluntarily interrupted him in that very important moment, and on top of that, he had injured him. You want to fight? But it's not so fun to fight here in the gorge. If you want to have your revenge, why don't you come to the life or death arena?" asked the young person in a disdainful tone, showing hatred for Han Man. "All right," replied Han Man without hesitation, trying to control his extreme anger. "I'll be waiting for you," said the young person while leaving in the direction of the life or death arena. "Han Man, it is hard to determine his strength in comparison with yours, and going to the life or death arena is very dangerous." Lin Feng warned Han Man, "I'm able to determine his strength with just a glance." "He is the same as me, 8th Qi layer," replied Han Man, which surprised Lin Feng. Was Han Man able to sense other people's cultivation level? "I don't know what's going on, but I'm also able to sense Jing Yun's cultivation level as well as yours. It's maybe one of the effects of the flash of realization I just had. Maybe I could explain if I was not interrupted." Han Man's explanation didn't convince Lin Feng. Han Man started walking towards the life or death arena while clenching his fists. "Let's go." Lin Feng was really skeptical. Jing Yun and Lin Feng followed Han Man, putting their trust in their friend's words. If Han Man's flash of realization really enabled him to sense other people's cultivation level and the opponent was really a cultivator of the 8th Qi layer, then there shouldn't be a great danger if they are evenly matched. The life or death arena was located in a canyon at the middle of the stormy gorge. There were 10 seats for viewing above the rocky terrain on the boundary of the arena, but as the area was extremely vast, many would gather around and watch the battles from a distance. 2 silhouettes entered the life or death arena, which promptly drew the attention of the cultivators in the area. In a flash, many people were rushing over to watch the fight. Even though the amount of people who come into the gorge was huge, there are very few people who ever enter the arena. After all, inside the life or death arena you had to risk your life. If you didn't hate someone with all your heart, then why take those risks? Most people who would go into the arena would do it to fight against an opponent of similar strength, which made the battles interesting to watch. Therefore, when Han Man and his opponent came to the life or death arena, the amount of people surrounding the area was enormous. In the stormy gorge there were some people who watched this area waiting for a bloody battle and would spread the news to fellow disciples at incredible speed. "We all come to the life or death arena to settle our grudges. My goal is not to settle any grudge, because today your fate has already been decided by someone else," said the young boy to Han Man while a creepy smile covered his face. "Han Man, remember the name of the one who is going to take your life. My name is Zhangu." Lin Feng, standing on the sand dunes outside the arena, felt a shiver run down his spine. When he heard what Zhangu said, he knew something was wrong. How did he know that it was Han Man behind the mask? "You know me?" said Han Man, furious. A sinister smile crept over Zhangu's face. A burning energy suddenly started emerging from his body, accompanied by blazing flames. At the same time an illusory flame appeared on his back, a fire spirit. "He is indeed a cultivator of the 8th Qi layer," said Lin Feng, feeling the energy coming down from the arena. Han Man's earth spirit similarly started to burst out. He started running forwards. Even though he wasn't running very fast, the energy and the strength released by his body made every footstep send small quakes through the floor. Flame detonation, a powerful wave filled with flames shot towards Han Man. When Jiang Huai saw that Han Man had abruptly stopped and taken a posture which made him look like an unmovable mountain, Jiang Huai shouted, "I will smash this mountain before me." Ha ha ha. Their two fists collided and both Han Man and Jiang Huai suddenly stopped moving, exactly where they had just collided. Neither of them overpowering their opponent. Jiang Huai frowned and stopped laughing. He hadn't expected Han Man to be that strong. A malicious grin appeared on his face and he thrust out with his left fist, but Han Man easily blocked it with his palm. Suddenly he threw a white dust from his right hand directly into Han Man's eyes. He carried this dust to blind enemies stronger than him. "Die," said Jiang Huai while throwing a punch at Han Man's chest. "Damn! How shameless," cursed Lin Feng, who then saw shadowy figures moving towards the life or death arena. In the life or death arena people sometimes lose their life. "Do not worry, it will be your turn soon, Jing Yun," said the shadow in a chilling tone. Jing Yun was terrified when she saw his face. "Jing Hao!" she shouted loudly. She saw the other disciple behind Jing Hao. It was the young disciple who had been injured by Lin Feng earlier that day, and now everything had been made clear. This was all a trap to begin with. Boom! Ha ha ha! Jiang Huai circled around and attacked the defenseless Han Man from behind. He didn't intend to let him get even the smallest chance to rest. He punched Han Man repeatedly as the powder had blinded him. The sound of Han Man's bones cracking and a loud spine-chilling shriek filled the air. However, this was drowned out by the laughing of Jiang Huai, who was taking joy in every last moment of Han Man's suffering. That guy really is shameless. He must have planned to use that powder from the start. How despicable. There were more and more people gathering around the life or death arena. Some of them were talking to other disciples, all had their eyes fixated on the fight. In the life or death arena there is no rules on fighting fairly, you can resort to whichever method needed to win, said Jing Hao. Nonetheless, Lin Feng acted as if he hadn't heard that remark and moved towards the arena. Suddenly Jing Hao blocked the way. There would be no saving Han Man, as his punishment was to be beaten to death in front of everyone. "Let me pass," said Lin Feng. "Eighth Qi layer, and you still dare to come and challenge me? I am avenging my dead brother Jing Feng. This has nothing to do with you, unless you want to get involved in my personal grudge," threatened Jing Hao, not really paying much attention. Lin Feng. "Get involved? You do not want me, the person who killed your brother, to get involved? I beheaded him as he begged for the mercy he would not have shown others. Now let Han Man come down off the stage and let me replace him. If I don't go into the life or death arena willingly, how will you be able to avenge your pathetic little brother?" Lin Feng said. Jing Hao was 6th in the disciple rankings. Lin Feng had monstrous talent, but could he be compared to those in the top rankings? It was not possible. Han Man had a face filled with protest when he heard what Lin Feng had said, but his voice was too weak to protest. Huh? Jing Hao's couldn't believe what he had heard, and slowly wrath filled his eyes. He quickly shouted, "Jiang Huai, stop attacking." When Jiang Huai heard Jing Hao, he stopped fighting immediately and stood looking at Jing Hao, waiting for his next order. "You can come over and replace Han Man if you dare," Jing Hao said, pointing at Lin Feng with murderous intentions in his eyes. He didn't need to speak such useless words. Lin Feng jumped into the arena in a flash. He could see that Han Man's face was drenched with blood and his body was mangled. Bones could be seen piercing out from his skin, many fingers were not in the correct position, and his breathing was heavy with a wheeze. Lin Feng wiped the blood covering Han Man's eyes, as at this point he could not move his arms, he was barely breathing. This reminded Lin Feng of how he had been left here before in the same condition. "Han Man, can you make it out of the arena alone?" Lin Feng asked Han Man. "No problem. I am not dead. Please just go and avenge me," said Han Man, grinning, enduring the intense pain all over his body. Don't worry. Lin Feng's felt a pain in his chest when he saw Han Man's smile. That guy was really stubborn. It was clear he did not have the strength to go alone. He helped Han Man stand up and using Lin Feng as a crutch to lean upon, started moving to the edge of the arena. Lin Feng stopped upon hearing Jing Hao's voice. Jiang Huai, you know what to do. I understand, I have to kill them both, replied Jiang Huai. Jing Hao, who was satisfied with the answer, nodded in agreement. In the life or death arena, you are not the ones who get to decide your own life or even your friend's life. You want to replace him? No problem, you will die first instead of him and then he will die. Jing Hao said carefree while watching Lin Feng who had continued moving Han Man to the edge of the arena. Is that so? Said Lin Feng with a grin covering his face, letting Han Man rest on the edge of the arena. At that moment, Jiang Huai was charging towards them surrounded by a powerful fire qi. Fire bomb. Die together, shouted Jing Huai. A ball made of flame suddenly appeared in his hand, emitting a strong scorching heat which seemed to overwhelm the very air itself. Get lost, said Lin Feng while unsheathing his long sword. A roar of thunder spread throughout the entire arena. Immediately the flames were enveloped by the thunderous roars, but the sword didn't decrease its momentum and shot towards Jiang Huai who was still running forward, leaving a small hole in his chest where the sword had pierced directly through him. Splash, splash, drops of blood were falling from the wound in Jiang Huai's chest. Lin Feng was looking at Jiang Huai with powerful killing intent. I'm going to die, said Lin Feng while laughing. He thrust out his sword again. There were roars of thunder all around. Jiang Huai tried to run and avoid the attack but it was too sudden for him to react. He was hit by the shockwave of the sword which made his body fly up into the air before heavily falling back down onto the stone floor. Jiang Huai couldn't avoid a single hit. Every time he got to his feet he was sent flying into the air and crashed heavily onto the rocks beneath. Roaring thunder skill, the thunderous roars that come from his sword, he's able to use the roaring thunder skill and create a thunderous roar each strike. Which genius of our sect is that? People in the crowd couldn't hold back their excitement but they couldn't recognize Lin Feng as he was wearing a mask. If they could, many would pinch themselves to wake from the illusion. Jing Hao was seized with horror. His face looked hideous as he had been humiliated. Jiang Huai surprisingly couldn't fight Lin Feng, killing him seemed to be an impossible mission. Jiang Huai could only attempt to escape and run to Jing Hao, who would protect him. Jiang Huai saw Lin Feng's long sword getting closer. He was lying on his stomach, seemingly unable to get to his feet, but he didn't stop crawling in the opposite direction of Lin Feng unconsciously. His face was filled with terror and despair. I'm not fighting anymore, I give up, you have won. I have won. Lin Feng looked like he had heard the best joke in the world. Jiang Huai had nearly killed Han Man. If Jiang Huai had been strong enough then he would have killed Lin Feng and Han Man, but now he was declaring himself defeated. Admitting defeat, was that really enough after everything he had done? Die, shouted Jiang Huai suddenly. A white powder flew towards Lin Feng. Meanwhile, Jiang Huai pounced towards the edge of the arena. Luckily Lin Feng had not let his guard down even for a second. Jing Hao, protect me, quickly, said Jiang Huai while dashing in Jing Hao's direction. Lin Feng was following behind him like a shadow. Something heavy had fallen onto the ground outside of the arena boundary with a thump. It was actually Jiang Huai's body which had fallen down from the rocky arena platform onto the ground beneath, but he was smiling because he had landed in front of Jing Hao and even more importantly, outside of the arena. Jing Hao couldn't come in the arena to intervene as fights in the life or death arena were duels. If he had intervened he would lose face. However, after having moved to the boundary area, there was no restriction with him taking action here. Too bad you didn't kill me in the life or death arena, said Jiang Huai while looking mockingly at Lin Feng who was still on the edge of life or death arena. The life or death arena was a battle arena where one's life was at stake. Jiang Huai had stepped out of the arena. If Jiang Huai was still in the stormy gorge, Lin Feng could still chase and secretly kill him, but because Jing Hao was there, he wouldn't act rashly. Is that so? When he has stepped out of the life or death arena, his life will no longer be in my hands but in the hands of the gods. Killing him is against the rules. After saying this, Lin Feng created powerful waves using his 9 heavy waves technique and shot them in Jing Hao's direction. Jing Hao had a malicious smile on his face. The 9 heavy waves smashed into his palm, not even leaving a mark. Roaring thunder. Lin Feng threw himself towards Jing Hao, brandishing his sword using his roaring thunder skill. Jing Hao unsheathed his sword and replied using the same roaring thunder skill. 9 heavy waves, go die. After finishing his roaring thunder skill, Lin Feng jumped into the air like a tiger and his 9 heavy waves shot out, which didn't completely stop Jing Hao's roaring thunder but had weakened it, and the waves continued to flow like an endless ocean. Jing Hao looked surprised as he hadn't expected Lin Feng's skills to be this powerful. Lin Feng would take advantage of every opening and use his roaring thunder skill. Each of Lin Feng's strikes were aimed at Jing Hao's vital points. With each shock wave which was stopped, another would follow, flooding the gorge with its shock waves. Each time there was no other choice but for Jing Hao to step back and retreat. By the time he had neutralized all of Lin Feng's attacks, he had realized his mistake. Lin Feng was standing next to Jiang Huai. Lin Feng's long sword was pointed towards Jiang Huai's neck. When combining 9 heavy waves and roaring thunder, it created a powerful combination which even forced Jing Hao to step back. Even though it was only a few steps, he can still be proud of himself. Jing Hao is 6th on the disciple rankings. His strength is above average. He has even perfected his roaring thunder skill. I would have never thought that guy would master the roaring thunder technique on equal terms with brother Jing Hao and would even force him to take a step back. People in the crowd were discussing loudly. Lin Feng was only at the 8th Qi layer. Jing Hao was one of stronger disciples of the sect, and even some disciples of the 9th Qi layer wouldn't even be able to defeat him even if they fought him together. But Lin Feng was able to make Jing Hao step back and had Jiang Huai's life in his hands. Who could have imagined this turn of events? Hearing all the people commenting on the fight, Jing Hao couldn't stop himself from getting angry. He was very famous amongst the disciples of the sect. Because of Lin Feng he had lost face and been humiliated. How dare you? Go on. I dare you to kill him. I will make your life a nightmare, such a nightmare that you will want to die every day. Jing Hao was shouting at Lin Feng, who was holding his sword over Jiang Huai. Please let me go, begged Jiang Huai, who was shaking. Let you go. In your dreams. You can die like a dog here. Lin Feng's sword flashed and slit Jiang Huai's jugular. The scene was incredibly shocking. Jiang Huai laid there wide-eyed watching the scene of his own death. A constant stream of blood sprayed from the wound, rising in the air then falling into the sand. Blood mist was thick in the air and all around was dark red sand. Have courage, said members of the crowd pitying Lin Feng's fate. Jing Hao had a spine-chilling sensation watching the scene unfold in front of him. Lin Feng had surprisingly ignored what he had said, ignored the clan rules and directly killed Jiang Huai in such a brutal way. Lin Feng had completely disregarded Jing Hao's warning. No matter what, Jing Hao would never stop hunting Lin Feng, so why would he care about idle threats? You managed to humiliate me today, and even if I cannot kill you now, I will make you suffer a fate worse than death, said Jing Hao furiously. The entire crowd thought Lin Feng was very unlucky. He had made Jing Hao furious and had broken the clan rules. Even if Lin Feng didn't die, he was about to be tortured to the point of wanting death, and that would only be the beginning. Lin Feng was a skillful disciple, but against one of the top 10 disciples within the ordinary disciple rankings, nobody thought he was strong enough to resist. Jing Yun was so nervous that she could hardly breathe. Unfortunately, she was a weak cultivator and she couldn't help Lin Feng. Jing Hao could kill her in one strike from his sword. Everyone was looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng remained silent. He turned around slowly and jumped back into the life or death arena. What is he doing? asked people in the crowd while looking at Lin Feng, who was already back in the arena. They were all stupefied. Lin Feng arrived in the middle of the arena. He turned around and then looked at Jing Hao. In an icy cold tone, Lin Feng said, "What are you waiting for? You're next." At that moment a complete silence covered the gorge. Lin Feng had challenged the 6th-ranking disciple in the life or death arena. "I did warn you guys that things would get interesting. I hope you enjoy all the cliffhangers, hee. Hugs and kisses. Good disciples don't break sect rules." Bad Lin Feng. Lin Feng was wearing a mask so nobody could recognize him, even though he wouldn't be recognized by the top disciples who populated gorge. He had mastered the 9 heavy waves technique as well as the roaring thunder skill, which proved he was a monstrous talent and would definitely draw attention. Lin Feng was wearing a mask so nobody could recognize him, even though he wouldn't be recognized by the top disciples who populated gorge. He had mastered the 9 heavy waves technique as well as the roaring thunder skill, which proved he was a monstrous talent and would definitely draw attention. Jing Hao was the 6th strongest disciple within the sect ranking system and was above Lin Feng in cultivation at the 9th Qi layer. Jing Hao had made his name famous by defeating 3 disciples who were also at the 9th Qi layer in a 3-on-1 battle. Lin Feng's level of cultivation was a whole layer below Jing Hao, but everybody had seen Lin Feng force Jing Hao to retreat. He had killed Jiang Huai, who was one of Jing Hao's closest followers. Jing Hao had lost face. He had allowed an unknown disciple who was only at the 8th Qi layer to force him into retreating and even watched as his follower was killed in front of his eyes. At the moment when everyone was expecting Jing Hao to unleash his fury and force Lin Feng into a pitiful state, Lin Feng had already stepped back into the life or death arena. While everyone staring disbelievingly at his action, Lin Feng wasted no time and challenged Jing Hao in the most condescending way. "Maybe, he knows that his fate is already sealed and has chosen to die in battle," said a disciple in the crowd. Lin Feng was only at the 8th Qi layer after all, and his strength was relatively low in comparison with Jing Hao. Jing Hao felt humiliated and didn't know how such a turn of events had come about. He had never been humiliated in such a way since he had joined the Yunhai sect. "Since you are requesting to die, who better than me to kill you?" said Jing Hao, full of hatred. Since he had seen Lin Feng use the roaring thunder skill, he knew that Lin Feng hadn't lied to him. He definitely had the strength to kill Jing Feng. Not only had he killed his little brother, but he had also humiliated him in front of a large crowd of disciples. This could not be tolerated. Jing Hao stepped into the arena as a strong force began to rise from his sword. Behind Jing Hao was a floating illusionary sword pointing towards the heavens. It was Jing Hao's sword spirit. Jing Hao was wasting no time and immediately started using his sword spirit. He wants to show Lin Feng the gap between their powers. Everybody guessed what Jing Hao intended to do. He wanted to show how powerful he was compared to the commoner in front of him. "Unsheath your sword and I will let you have 3 sword strikes before I attack. Let me see what your puny strength can do with 3 sword strikes," said Jing Hao while holding his sword and arrogantly looking down on Lin Feng. Lin Feng grinned. He immediately used his moonlight feather agility. Like moonlight during the day, he disappeared from sight, then appeared in front of Jing Hao. Many illusory swords began to form, then shot from Lin Feng's hand palm directly at Jing Hao. When they arrived in front of Jing Hao, all these illusory swords combined into the tip of Lin Feng's sword and then smashed down into Jing Hao. A deafening thunderous roar spread throughout the atmosphere. How strong! He is really a master at using the roaring thunder skill. When the crowd heard the noise, they looked at the scene horrified. The sounds emitted by his attacks sounded like lightning tearing through the air and then exploding on impact. These sounds could even scare the disciples watching from a distance. Jing Hao's expression, which was initially extremely carefree, suddenly tensed. He had underestimated his opponent and could not let his guard down. The thunderous roars made the air in the gorge start to tremble. An extremely powerful illusory sword was hovering in the air in front of Jing Hao, acting as a shield. "First attempt," said Jing Hao mockingly. Lin Feng didn't lose his concentration. He believed in his power and ability. Countless thunderous roars exploded as Lin Feng prepared his second strike. This would be much more powerful than the first strike. Jing Hao was still just protecting himself and not attacking. He was using his illusory sword as a shield, knowing with his higher cultivation and sword spirit, he could counter any type of attack. For his next strike, Lin Feng started charging at Jing Hao, however he suddenly thrust his sword forward and loosened his grip of the hilt. The sword continued to move along its trajectory and flew through the air at Jing Hao. What is he doing? The crowd was as stupefied as to what Lin Feng had just done. Lin Feng had concentrated all his qi into the tip of the sword, then shot it towards Jing Hao. If Jing Hao accepted this attack like before, then he would damage his sword spirit with the impact. This was not an option for Jing Hao. Jing Hao was stupefied for a second and then smiled to himself. Did Lin Feng really think this would work? Jing Hao started to move backwards while bringing his sword upwards in an arc, and with an elegant movement he had skillfully countered the force of the sword, sending it flying powerlessly into the air. After Lin Feng let go of his sword, he was already charging at incredible speed towards Jing Hao. Using his moonlight feather agility technique, it seemed as if his feet did not touch the floor as they disappeared before anyone could clearly see them. Second attempt, said Jing Hao arrogantly as he watched Lin Feng approach him at incredibly speed. He did not feel threatened, he was merely toying with Lin Feng. Lin Feng had landed in front of Jing Hao, however his sword had landed on the floor behind him. You really want to die, said Jing Hao while biting his tongue. Lin Feng had not stopped to collect his sword, which was flying through the air. He began to strike towards Jing Hao with his fists. This way he was unable to count the third sword strike and would be humiliated by being forced to take Lin Feng's blows without ever retaliating. All he wanted was to show Lin Feng the difference in their power, but again he would be forced to lose face because of Lin Feng. Then Jing Hao heard Lin Feng say something which shocked him to the core. That's enough. I am done playing now. Lin Feng had stopped in front of Jing Hao with eyes filled with killing intent, and suddenly a thunderous roar was heard. A bright and blinding light flashed through the air between the two figures before disappearing from sight. Jing Hao looked stupefied and horrified at what had just happened. It seemed like he had understood what Lin Feng had meant. Jing Hao was not the predator in this fight, and instead it was Lin Feng who was toying with him. Would the result have been different if he had not arrogantly given Lin Feng 3 strikes? Jing Hao no longer had the opportunity to regret his actions as he had already taken his last breath. Third attempt, said Lin Feng as his voice filled the air surrounding the arena, which was deathly silent. Jing Hao was still stood in the middle of the arena unharmed, but to everyone's surprise, Lin Feng had simply walked past Jing Hao and picked up his sword, which was previously sent flying. The whole arena was completely silent, everyone had heard it. As Lin Feng's words echoed throughout the canyon, the only other sound was of Jing Hao's body slumping down onto the floor with blood seeping from a previous unseen wound on his neck. Everybody was watching the scene stupefied and couldn't believe it their eyes. Jing Hao had lost. How had Lin Feng attacked? Sword unsheathing skill. In the crowd there were many elite disciples. They had seen the light of the sword which passed between Lin Feng and Jing Hao. Because the sword was too quick, it looked like a meteor flashing through the sky before disappearing. Suddenly everyone started to discuss the battle they had just watched. They could not believe what they had just witnessed. The 6th-ranked disciple had been defeated by Lin Feng, and the outcome of the battle had been his death. Who is he? Everyone was wondering which disciple had been so arrogant to directly kill 2 people in succession. How had he overcome Jing Hao, who was 9th Qi layer and was one of the best disciples of the sect? Lin Feng had shown that he was the true genius, and no one doubted his skill after this display. The news that someone had defeated Jing Hao was going to spread quickly within the Yunhai sect. At that moment, on the top of the gorge, many people were discussing the last sword strike of Lin Feng. Not so far away from the gorge, inside a bustling pavilion, a relaxed old man was staring blankly into the distance and smiling as he whispered, "That young man has already learned how to master the sword unsheathing skill." He really does have incredible talent. The old man was the one Lin Feng had met at the Xingchen Pavilion, who had reminded Lin Feng of an extremely powerful fictional monk from his past life. That old man would have never thought he would see the sword he gifted to an interesting young disciple appear in the life or death arena. That is how he had recognized Lin Feng. The Stormy Gorge was a place where many Yunhai sect disciples chose to go and practice the control of their cultivation and martial techniques within real battle. The top disciples of the sect, including many elite disciples, were the disciples who populated the Stormy Gorge. You could see that the Yunhai sect was an outstanding sect from just looking at the sheer number of its disciples in the gorge who were watching the fight from the sidelines. Except for the old man, Jing Yun and Han Man, there was only one disciple in the crowd who knew the identity of who had just killed Jing Hao. That man was called Guahai, the young disciple who had used Jing Feng's death as a pretext to blackmail Jing Yun. The result was that he had been beaten back by Lin Feng. Afterwards he had looked for Jing Hao and remembered what Lin Feng and the two others were wearing so he could identify the group. He had been tracking them as they went down into the gorge. This was all part of his plan, as he would use Jing Hao to kill Lin Feng and Han Man, then take Jing Yun as his reward. Guahai had watched as Lin Feng killed Jing Hao, which was utterly unexpected. He was so terrified that he secretly tried to escape, knowing that he would be next. "You want to leave now, but isn't it too early to leave now that you have been so successful with your trap?" said Lin Feng to Guahai in an ice-cold tone. Lin Feng had paid careful attention and had already seen that Guahai had been hiding behind Jing Hao and whispering in his ear. Guahai stopped and had a shiver run down his spine as he felt Lin Feng's cold gaze piercing through his back. When Guahai heard Lin Feng, he turned around. Guahai was smiling, but it was a smile to hide his terror, which was ugly to behold. "You must be mistaken, senior brother. I have nothing to do with the events which have happened here," Guahai said in a respectful tone, pretending he did not know it was Lin Feng. "Oh, so want to lie and say that you do not know me," said Lin Feng, smiling. His face revealed clear killing intent, which he made no attempt hide. "Please remember, we are in the Stormy Gorge and not in the life or death arena. You cannot act rashly," said Guahai in a shaky and fragile voice, who could feel Lin Feng approaching with the intent to kill. "I know," said Lin Feng, sounding indifferent. Boom! Powerful waves suddenly crashed heavily onto Guahai, pressing him against the ground. Guahai had no chance, he didn't even attempt any resistance. After Lin Feng had killed Jing Hao, would he have the strength to resist such a powerful opponent? Lin Feng grabbed Guahai using only one hand and threw him directly into life or death arena. Lin Feng then picked up his sword and approached Guahai, who was struggling to stand after landing so heavily onto the rocky arena. "Now you are in the life or death arena, so there are no problems." The crowd looked at Lin Feng, they were speechless in shock. How audacious could one person possibly be? "This wasn't my decision, I didn't decide to step in here myself." "You are violating the sect's rules by doing this. How dare you so blatantly break the sect's rules?" Guahai hadn't expected Lin Feng to throw him into the arena. He started shaking from head to toe with fear. A light suddenly flashed between Lin Feng and Guahai, sending his head flying into the air. "Does the sect really have such rules? Then I will just have to ignore them," Lin Feng said with a hint of anger as he finally sheathed his sword. If the sect really had rules, would have Lu Fei dared take out her bow and try to kill him without discussion? If the sect really had rules, would the elite disciples really threaten him with death without being provoked? These rules obviously do not apply to all disciples. If you are strong enough, if you master enough skills, if you have a high status within the sect, there is one rule. The rule is that there are no rules. It was as if he was daring the elders of the sect to try and punish him for killing other disciples. Lin Feng doesn't take pleasure in killing people. In Lin Feng's previous life, if you killed people then you would be sentenced to death. However, in this world several people tried to kill him even though there was no grudge between them. It enabled Lin Feng to understand that in this world, only the strong would survive. It was a cruel world, therefore if people wanted to kill him, then he would mercilessly kill them. Anyone who attempted to take his life would lose their own no matter their family connections, status, or gender, all would be cut down by his sword. Lin Feng went back to Han Man who was sat on the edge of the arena smiling. He said to Lin Feng, I never doubted that you would kill them, rules or no rules, they were already dead. Said Lin Feng while smiling. And they all lived happily ever after. The end slightly late on my release today as I was working late. This is Wednesday's regular release. Unfortunately there is no cliffhanger for you today. Just Lin Feng daring an extremely powerful sect to punish him. I am sure that will go down well. Hee, hugs and kisses. Thank you to everyone for your support. I hope you enjoy this chapter. Here is a sponsored chapter for today. Special thanks to Jaskarat K and Amp, Joseph G. Luckily for you all there is no cliffhanger today. I thought I would still give you the sponsored chapter on my day off since I worked late yesterday and didn't manage to finish it in time for you. This chapter was one of the harder ones. Here is a sponsored chapter for today. Special thanks to Jaskarat K and Amp, Joseph G. Luckily for you all there is no cliffhanger today. I thought I would still give you the sponsored chapter on my day off since I worked late yesterday and didn't manage to finish it in time for you. This chapter was one of the harder ones. Thank you everyone for the continued support. It really means a lot. Hugs and kisses. Lin Feng and Jing Yun were in Han Man's room. They were staring at Han Man and worriedly looking at his injuries. These injuries are very serious, said Lin Feng while checking Han Man's injuries. Although cultivators had a higher natural healing ability than other people, his injuries were very serious. It seemed like every part of his body had been damaged from his broken bones to internal injuries inflicted on his organs. It would be impossible for him to recover without any assistance. No problem, my life has always been tough. I won't die so easily, said Han Man with an optimistic smile. What about your cultivation? Said Lin Feng staring at him. Han Man dodged Lin Feng's glance. He couldn't look at Lin Feng's eyes. That's right, even though he wasn't going to die, his cultivation was damaged and without proper care he would eventually turn into a cripple, with less strength than even an ordinary person. Lin Feng, let's go to the Black Wind Mountain, kill some ferocious beasts to get some items to exchange against immortal pills to heal Han Man, said Jing Yun. Han Man was just another disciple of the sect and there were a great number of disciples to replace him. If you were not an elite disciple, the sect would eventually only provide you with basic accommodation. If you had rendered a great service to the sect or if you had an extraordinary strength, then they would make you join the elite disciples. Those who showed rare capability on the path of cultivation became important and respected sect members. As ordinary disciples they couldn't count on the sect's help as far as Han Man was concerned. What would be the benefit for the sect to waste such precious materials to save a normal disciple? That wouldn't work, his injuries are too serious. Even if an ordinary pill can cure him, the side effects will be too harsh on his damaged body, said Lin Feng shaking his head. What should we do then? Is there another solution? Asked Jing Yun. Lin Feng suddenly stood up, turned around and walked towards the door. I'm going to the precipice of the abyss. Wait for me. I'll be back soon, said Lin Feng calmly. Complete silence filled the room which Lin Feng had just left. Jing Yun shivered nervously, clenching her fists. Han Man was smiling. Even though his face looked as if he was happily smiling, you could see his eyes becoming moist. The precipice of the abyss. Only a guy like Lin Feng could come up with such an idea. Only a guy like Lin Feng would dare to go there with his cultivation. The precipice of the abyss was one of the most mysterious and sacred places of the Yunhai sect. It was even more famous than the life or death arena. There were not many people who engaged in battles in the life or death arena, but every once in a while, there would be some. However, there were extremely few people who went to the precipice of the abyss. Those who dared to go there were those who were truly seeking either enlightenment or death. Within the Yunhai sect many disciples heard the name of the Precipice of the Abyss, but they had never laid eyes or heard stories from what was inside. It was too dangerous to even attempt to enter, and those who did, never returned to tell the story. Everyone had heard that if you passed the test of the Precipice of the Abyss, then the sect would acknowledge you and you would receive a priceless treasure. Needless to say, if you failed the test, then the consequences would be disastrous. On the top of the Yunhai mountain, there was a mystical cave which was very difficult to reach for ordinary disciples. That cave was the passageway to the Precipice of the Abyss. At that moment, Lin Feng was at the entrance leading to the cave. I, Lin Feng of the Yunhai sect, dare to challenge the Precipice of the Abyss, shouted Lin Feng in front of the entrance. His voice penetrated into the walls of the cave and didn't stop echoing for what seemed like an eternity. After a short time a voice replied, however this voice did not echo and seemed to arrive from inside the cave instantly. Come in. Okay, replied Lin Feng and immediately started walking inside the cave. The passage was dark and there would be no light to be found this deep within the cave, but it was still possible to barely make out the surroundings. On both sides of the cave there were paintings and symbols drawn on the walls. He continued walking forwards and could already see part of the cave in which there was a small light. He immediately headed towards the light. Inside this part of the cave there was a bed made of stones, a single table and chair with a candle atop. It was a very rustic room. On the bed sat an old man wearing a black cloak. His eyes were closed and he wasn't moving at all, there were not even signs of breathing. After a long time the old man spoke. You want to go to the Precipice of the Abyss? Said the old man wearing the black cloak with his eyes still closed. Yes, I do, replied Lin Feng. And for what reason do you want to go there? My friend has been injured. He has broken bones and his internal organs have been heavily injured too. I need the sect's support to save him from becoming a cripple. I need pills which can cure him without the side effects, replied Lin Feng unperturbed. The old man wearing the black cloak opened his eyes. His expression was profound, as if his stare was penetrating into Lin Feng's soul. It was as if he could see through him. If there was such an easy way to get pills, then all disciples would attempt it, but you are only at the 8th Qi layer. Passing the exam of the Precipice of the Abyss will be extremely difficult. Release your spirit so that I can see it. Lin Feng nodded. A small snake appeared, but as the dark spirit appeared it instantly hid itself and was undetectable. What? Really? Said the old man wearing the black cloak while frowning. Even though he had a broad knowledge, he had never thought that such a spirit existed. It seemed like the snake was flying in the air, but it was thin and looked weak. It did not look like a ferocious beast and instead looked weaker than a house pet. You can go to the Precipice of the Abyss through this passage, said the old man pointing to one of the passageways. In that room, there were many passageways all leading to different places, all of which required taking different exams. Thank you, elder, said Lin Feng nodding. Then he entered the passage without any hesitation or regrets. When the elder saw Lin Feng enter the passage, he shook his head. 8th Qi layer and his spirit was so incredibly weak. It was almost impossible for him to pass the exam in the Precipice of the Abyss. The passage the old man had just shown to Lin Feng led to the Precipice of Zhangu. That was the least dangerous exam and Lin Feng could come out at any time. However, its degree of difficulty was the highest of all exams. Lin Feng had come for his friend, so the elder in the black cloak didn't want Lin Feng to get injured too seriously. Therefore, he had opted to let Lin Feng enter the only place where he could forfeit and return if he thought it was too difficult. The drums hadn't emitted a sound for 100 years, which also meant nobody had been able to pass the exam of this passageway in 100 years. Lin Feng entered the passageway. It was pitch black inside. There was countless hand-carved stone steps leading down this passage. There was over 1,000 steps to the top, and at the end he could see a simple yet large square room. Lin Feng arrived at the room and saw a huge stone doorway which was the only entrance to the room. As Lin Feng approached, these huge stone doors began to open themselves, letting Lin Feng enter. What a mysterious place, whispered Lin Feng. The passage suddenly opened and allowing him entry. A pure and fresh air assailed Lin Feng's nostrils. This room was enveloped in clouds and mist and there was a slight chill in the air. The room itself gave a dangerous yet mysterious aura. In the room there were 8 large drums. These drums looked like the war drums from his previous world which would be played during military attacks. They looked identical to the war drums of his world. Boom! The large doors made of stone closed behind him. Lin Feng turned around and saw words written in big letters. If only one makes the sound, doesn't that mean I have succeeded? Lin Feng had understood the meaning behind these large letters which were carved into the back of the stone doors. He then moved to the center of the area and looked around. He didn't know what made these drums so mysterious. He just had to make one drum make a sound to pass the exam. Ha! Lin Feng dashed towards a drum while condensing the qi in his fist and randomly punched the drum. Dunning, the drum made a muffled sound. Invisible sound waves were released from the clock drum which made Lin Feng step back in shock. Ha! Lin Feng frowned. He dashed forward again and concentrated 5,000 jin of power in his fist then punched the drum directly. Dunning, a strong vibration spread throughout the atmosphere. The vibrations began to combine into a powerful wave. Once all the waves had combined into one, the single remaining wave was launched directly back to Lin Feng. Boom! The powerful wave crashed onto Lin Feng which knocked him into the air and sent him flying backwards. Cough, cough, Lin Feng fell on the ground and coughed twice. Seeing the blood come out of his mouth stupefied him. Was that 9 heavy waves? Lin Feng's eyes stared blankly at the drum. He had just been attacked by the 9 heavy waves technique and that 9 heavy waves power was far greater than his own understanding. These drums were able to return attacks and duplicate the strength of the attacks they returned. How intriguing! How did these drums return my attacks? Lin Feng was sitting and thinking deeply on the current situation. The first and the second time, he had only managed to make a muffled sound like a duong. The drums hadn't emitted anything close to a genuine drum sound on either of his strikes. To make things worse, the stronger his attacks were, the stronger they came back at him. It really was a mystery which seemed impossible to solve. I'm doing something wrong. Since this is an ancient sect exam, there must be a way to pass the exam. It's just that I haven't thought about the solution yet. Moreover, the elder in the black cloak knows that I'm an 8 layer cultivator and that my spirit is weak. He must have chosen the easiest exam for me. If I can't pass the easiest exam, then how would I ever gain support from the sect to help Han Man? Lin Feng was thinking deeply, then he suddenly jumped to his feet. At that moment he had perfectly understood what he was doing wrong as well as the elder's intentions. It wasn't the easiest exam, it was actually the most difficult one. The old man back in the cave actually hoped that Lin Feng would come crawling back in the face of difficulties. This was a test on how stubborn he could be in his path to becoming an immortal. Dark spirit, come out, thought Lin Feng. Lin Feng released his dark spirit. Immediately, his vision could pierce the secrets of the world. When he used his dark spirit, all of his abilities and skills became more powerful, including his power of understanding. His long sword emitted a metallic sound. A thunderous roar spread in throughout the atmosphere and bombarded onto a drum. Psh, boom, a whistling sound and a thunderous roaring filled the atmosphere of the cave. The attack struck the drum, but then as before the power was reversed and duplicated. The sword shook and he tried to stop the counterattack. Lin Feng's clothes were torn apart. There was blood flowing from wounds on Lin Feng's body. This was exactly what Lin Feng had predicted. The powers of the counterattacks were exactly twice the power of his previous attacks. Even though he was trying to protect himself, it didn't work. I just have to improve my skills, said Lin Feng without retreating. He used roaring thunder again, but this time to attack another of the 8 drums with his full power. Over the precipice of Zhangu, a strong wind was whistling. Sword Qi could be seen shooting in every direction. An insanely strong wind could be seen on the edge of the cliff. It was a powerful whirlwind of Sword Qi. Over the precipice of Zhangu, a strong wind was whistling. Sword Qi could be seen shooting in every direction. An insanely strong wind could be seen on the edge of the cliff. It was a powerful whirlwind of Sword Qi. The Sword Qi became thicker and more violent as you moved closer to the 8 drums. Unending whistling noises as well as thunderous roars were filling the atmosphere and causing a violent wind to appear all around. Lin Feng forgot how many times he had used his roaring thunder skill to strike at the drums. The qi released from the sword became a transparent layer around Lin Feng's body in an attempt to protect him from any attacks. The powerful sword attacks continued bombarding the drums. Lin Feng's body was covered with wounds from head to toe. Some wounds were scratches while others were so deep you could see the bone. Anyone who could see him would think he had just fought in the most terrible of battles. But it seemed like Lin Feng had forgotten everything. He was immersed in the infinite qi of his sword and began unlocking its mysteries, defending himself, attacking again. If someone had been there looking at Lin Feng, they surely would have cried out in alarm for him to stop damaging his body. Each time he conducted an assault on a drum, he was defending himself against the counterattack. Then he would attack the drum again using roaring thunder. Even though the counterattacks were twice as powerful as his own attacks, he was endlessly attacking them. There has been no sound yet. The reality sobered him up. Even though it was extremely dangerous for him to do that, he understood how much he had progressed. Before, when he had been practicing the roaring thunder skill, he had thought that he had reached the highest level possible and had complete mastery of the technique. There on the precipice of Zhangu he understood that he didn't master the skill and had only truly understood the basics. Compared to a truly strong cultivator, his technique would be at the level of a child not long from his mother's breast. At the beginning he was using only half of his power to attack a single drum. Then as time progressed, he attacked 2, then 3, until he had begun attacking all 8 drums. He was attacking all 8 drums while receiving their counterattacks. Each time he would receive a counterattack many times more powerful than his original attack. If he wasn't careful, then the counterattacks could destroy a limb or crush his ribs. His sword technique had grown to a much deeper understanding. As time progressed, he increased the power of his attacks and continued to train. The power of his attacks became twice as strong, then 3 times as strong. He continued until the power of each of his strikes was amplified in power by 7 times the power of his original attacks. Every time he had thought that he had reached his limits, he then would discover how to surpass that limit. He then multiplied his power by 7 and attacked all 8 drums at the same time. His body had become used to the pain and pressure created from constantly enduring this kind of harsh training. Unfortunately, the drums were just making the same muffled noise and didn't emit the noise which would pass the exam. There were an innumerable amount of people gathered around the life or death arena. What happened here? The elders are coming, said the crowd while staring at the person in the life or death arena. They felt puzzled. Its senior disciple Chen Xing. 2 months ago he became the strongest ordinary disciple, because he defeated an elite disciple in 1 hit and was allowed entry into the elite disciples. What is he doing here? He, who cares about Chen Xing? Haven't you seen Tu Fu and fellow disciple Ling Hu are here? What? You're saying that Tu Fu and Ling Hu are in the crowd? The crowd was noisy and all sorts of discussions could be heard about the reason behind these events. Tu Fu was very famous in the Yunhai sect. He was allegedly the strongest elite disciple. As far as Ling Hu, the Yunhai sect could say it didn't have a single disciple who didn't know him, as he was regarded as the strongest disciple of the sect. Ling Hu Hishan had surpassed everyone's level on the path of cultivation within the sect, including that of some elders. How was everyone supposed to keep calm after seeing such a strong disciple at the life or death arena? On the horizon the wind was growing uneasy. There was a legendary-looking rock in the sky, spreading its wings and soaring toward that location. Everyone could see that it was extremely powerful. It's coming, said the people around the life or death arena while looking at the silhouette flying in the sky. They were all tense. The speed of the legendary rock was extremely fast. In a flash it had already arrived within Stormy Gorge. The Yunhai sect's crowd of disciples burst into an uproar again. They were giving shouts one after the other. Oh my! There are people. 2 people are riding the legendary rock. Can you see there is also a beautiful girl up there? People watching this scene could feel their hearts racing with excitement. The legendary rock was carrying people and there was even a very beautiful girl. What a mind-blowing scene. It was too much for those lower disciples, they had already seen too many shocking things today. I apologize for having kept you waiting. The bird landed in the life or death arena. The speed at which it had been flowing and arrived was inconceivable. The crowd saw it clearly, that rock was a spirit. Both wings were spread wide and it looked like a real rock. The rock spirit was that of a young unknown disciple, his expression was strange, he looked extremely handsome and extremely evil at the same time. How young! He has such a strong rock spirit at his age. How did he become so strong? Wait. I heard that in the core disciples of the Zhangu sect, there is a highly ranked disciple who has a rock spirit, it is even difficult to compare him to a human. Absolutely, that core disciple enjoys a well-deserved reputation. He has amazing agility techniques. His spirit can also carry others on a flight with its strength, said some elders of the sect. He was indeed the first disciple of the Zhangu sect, his name was Chu Zhanpeng. A short while ago, the Yunhai sect received a letter written by Chu Zhanpeng saying he wanted to enrich his knowledge and exchange pointers with an outstanding disciple of the Yunhai sect. And besides he would immediately come in the life or death arena, of course for a fight. Chu Zhanpeng became a core disciple in the Zhangu sect, he was extremely famous in the Shuiyu country because of his status. He was the 6th strongest disciple of the country. Hardly would it be an exaggeration to say that no man in the entire Yunhai sect could match his strength. Ling Qi wasn't going to fight Chu Zhanpeng. The sect wasn't willing to challenge him. However, if he, himself, challenged someone, the clan had no choice but to accept. Dear elders, you're flattering me. This is my female junior apprentice Ling Qi. Not long ago she had already reached the Ling Qi layer. This time I am coming because my apprentice Ling Qi heard that Yunhai disciples are all strong and powerful, therefore she wanted to come and broaden her knowledge. I was hoping that you could help her achieve enlightenment by allowing a match of similar strength. She would learn a lot from such a battle. Chu Zhanpeng introduced the beautiful girl who was on his side. Chu Zhanpeng still looked both handsome and evil at the same time. Mo Xia insulted Chu Zhanpeng silently in his thoughts. Chu Zhanpeng had a certain reputation and could not be easily rejected. He had sent the letter in advance and planned some type of scheme. Go Qinxing, you're the one appointed to battle Ling Qi. Show her our sect's techniques and teach her through battle. Qinxing had reached the Ling Qi layer 2 months before when he had defeated an elite disciple. He was already at the first bottleneck of the Ling Qi layer. If he couldn't defeat Ling Qi, no other Yunhai Ling Qi disciple would be able to defeat her. Yes, elder, said Qinxing while nodding. He then went in the middle of the life or death arena to face Ling Qi. Fellow practitioner Ling Qi, let's start, said Qinxing while releasing his spirit. Suddenly a layer of rocks covered his body. This made him look like a huge golem monster made completely of the hardest rocks. This is Qinxing's rock spirit. Not only is this an outstanding defense ability but his attacks are also extremely powerful. He will clearly win this without needing any more skills, said an older disciple while staring at Qinxing with confidence. Even though Qinxing was covered with gigantic rocks, his speed hadn't decreased and he could move with incredible speed like before he was covered. In the blink of an eye, he had arrived in front of Ling Qi. He lashed his fist in the direction of the thin and frail Ling Qi, which made everyone feel worried for the safety of this beauty. Ice, whispered Ling Qi. A freezing cold air coming from her body spread began freezing the air around her. This sudden attack froze Chen Xing's rocky hand in place, which gave him the feeling he had hit an iron wall, unable to strike forward. Then Lin Qian suddenly grasped Chen Xing's fist using her both hands. Ice spread on Chen Xing's arm and then violently spread until it covered his entire body. That ice spirit is so powerful, she really does have natural talent. Mo Xie said. Everybody was born with a spirit, but the same spirit in different people didn't have the same strength. The spirit's strength would depend on level of cultivation, natural gifts, martial skills, and many other variables which made it impossible to become so strong without the correct foundations for cultivation. Mo Xie was not worried about Chen Xing. After all, he had a rock spirit, so his defense skills were extremely high. Fire, whispered Lin Qian coldly. Chen Xing was suddenly covered in flames and his frozen body was trembling. His rocky body started to crack, which caused him to give a blood-curdling scream. Everybody was staring in shock as his rocky body was blown to pieces. Ice and fire. Mo Xie's face suddenly changed. A universal spirit, it was probably a universal spirit. Lin Qian's strength is high. I lost, said Chen Xing, looking depressed as he no longer had his body made from rocks to protect him. He went back to stand at Mo Xie's side. The crowd burst into an uproar. He lost. He actually lost. The Yunhai sect had chosen an elite disciple to battle and he had been defeated. The elders' cheeks were burning, they had lost face. Chu Zhanpeng still had that enigmatic smile on his face. He glanced at everyone. He, as expected, the disciple chosen by the Yunhai sect is very strong, but my junior disciple chosen by the Haoyu sect is extremely strong as well. The people who can beat her in this continent are few. Chu Zhanpeng wanted to find an outstanding disciple in the Yunhai sect to exchange pointers with Lin Qian, but I originally came because I had something to ask. What request do you have? Mo Xie said, looking anxious. My junior apprentice has an uncle and her uncle's son is called Lin Feng. He is truly insane. He humiliated some elders of their family and injured their clan's disciples. He is just an arrogant ordinary disciple. I hope the Yunhai sect will deliver him to me. I don't want the Yunhai sect to be known for having such disciples. Mo Xie understood everything when he heard these words. That was Chu Zhanpeng's purpose behind all these events. Chu Zhanpeng knew that if he had directly asked to get a member of the Yunhai sect, then the letter would have been refused, as this would cause the sect to lose face. However, he was very smart. He made Lin Qian defeat a Yunhai sect's elite disciple, and then the words he carefully chose so that the clan wouldn't lose face by giving him Lin Feng. Of course, if Mo Xie didn't accept Chu Zhanpeng's request, then he wouldn't be as friendly as he had been until that moment. It seems like Lin Qian means a lot to him, otherwise he wouldn't have come to the Yunhai sect for such a small matter. The universal spirit was indeed a very strong one. That's precisely what has brought him here, for revenge. Mo Xie had already made a decision and said to the others, go and bring Lin Feng here. When he heard these words, Chu Zhanpeng smiled and Lin Qian's eyes seemed to fill with killing intent. Lin Feng couldn't know what had happened in the stormy gorge as he was still training on the precipice of Zhangu. Lin Feng was surrounded by an immense amount of sword qi. Every hit he carried out with his sword was almost strong enough to kill him with a single strike, and then it would be returned many times stronger. His dark spirit was completely released. He was using his roaring thunder skill without any flaws. There was a white light surrounding his body and thunderous roars were spreading throughout the atmosphere. It was a terrifying scene to anyone who could see. Lin Feng was in a complete frenzy and used all of his strength to bombard the drums. He was completely unaware at this point the sect was searching for him, to bring him to his execution. Special thanks to Joseph G for sponsoring this bonus chapter. He said he doesn't understand why he is so absorbed into this novel. I like to think it's because of my amazing translation skills and not because of the great story. Hee hee. Special thanks to Joseph G. for sponsoring this bonus chapter. He said he doesn't understand why he is so absorbed into this novel. I like to think it's because of my amazing translation skills and not because of the great story. This is the first release from my slave weekend. For those of you who do not know, I will be working hard to clear all sponsored chapters during this time. I hope you enjoy this chapter. I will not begin editing chapter 20, which should be released shortly. Status, $80/40, 2 sponsored chapters, so we did not manage to make the most out of Saturday Slave Day, but the day is not over and we still have Sunday. I will do a maximum of 4 chapters today. Enjoy. All hell is about to break loose. Hugs and kisses. Lin Feng had completely released his dark spirit. Sweat was dripping all over his body as he struggled with every breath. The attacks had become overwhelmingly powerful. Lin Feng was definitely an exceptional talent which could only be seen every 10,000 years. It was almost like he was wielding 10,000 swords simultaneously. The thunderous roars had consumed the entire atmosphere within the precipice. Lin Feng was stunned at the progress he had made. He was able to predict when and how the counterattacks would strike back at him. He didn't stop attacking the drums for even a single second. If he stopped even briefly, the sword chi from a single counterattack would crush him. Lin Feng had not anticipated this kind of situation. How did it become powerful? Lin Feng had thousands of theories but could not comprehend his current situation. Lin Feng was never able to release such a powerful energy, so how could his returned energy be so much stronger? Even a cultivator who had reached the Ling Qi layer would find it hard to release such a powerful attack. Since I started using the Roaring Thunder skill, the energy from each attack has been accumulating and the sword chi is getting stronger and stronger. This is how it reached such a tremendous power, thought Lin Feng while still dodging each and every counterattack. The sword chi had transformed into an unknown force, a force which seemed to be invincible. Even though Han Man had only reached the 8th chi layer, it seemed like he was able to reach a perfect fusion with the earth beneath his feet. The earth was giving its power to him. It is precisely because he used the power of the earth combined with his abilities that he was able to defeat cultivators of the 9th chi layer in the 3-punch match and even cause an injury to that disciple. Lin Feng suddenly thought about the fight between Han Man and the cultivator of the 9th chi layer, which gave him a brilliant idea. He had initially thought that Han Man could use the earth's power because his spirit was an earth spirit, but Lin Feng realized that this type of thinking was wrong. This power was all around us at all times and anyone could use this power as their own. Each time he used 9 heavy waves to attack the drums counterattacked. Each time he used Roaring Thunder to attack the drums counterattacked. Lin Feng had realized that if the 8 drums didn't have the potential to attack, if 9 heavy waves bounced from the drums to come back at Lin Feng, it was because of the power within the attack. If Roaring Thunder bounced from the drums and came back at Lin Feng, it was because of the power of his Roaring Thunder skill. The power. Lin Feng had a bright smile on his face. He suddenly changed the way he was using his sword and each of his attacks became more skillful and elegant. His sword play had become graceful and while each of his movements required unparalleled skill, when used by Lin Feng it seemed as easy as breathing. In the stormy gorge, in the life or death arena, suddenly a group of people approached from the sky. When the crowd in the gorge saw these people, everyone from the Yunhai sect looked at them with the utmost respect. However, in their hearts they were all a bit nervous and stunned at the turn of events. Chu Zhanpeng was one of the 8 officials of the country, however the Yunhai patriarch reigned supreme over everyone within his territory, even though both sects had similar status. He was the great leader of the sect which made all of the Yunhai sect elders anxious upon his arrival. Patriarch, Great Elder, every member of the Yunhai sect bowed at the same time to greet the 2 special hosts. Chu Zhanpeng greets Patriarch Nan Gong and Great Elder Mo. Said Chu Zhanpeng to the 2 who were calmly moving in his direction while slightly bowing with respect. He still had a strange smile on his face, making him look handsome while giving away his treacherous intentions. Young Master Chu Zhanpeng, how have you been these days? Nan Gongling looked at Chu Zhanpeng while nodding his head. Nan Gongling was middle-aged but still had signs of youth on his face, and he was surprisingly calm in front of the junior patriarch. His youth showed he had spent less time than most on the path to cultivation but still had a mature composure. Nan Gongling is the youngest patriarch the Yunhai clan has ever had throughout its history. Although you are not yet as strong as my father, but if we had to fight, I would have a lot of pressure and the outcome would be unknown. Your power is extraordinary for such a young age, said Chu Zhanpeng looking calm. He was secretly amazed by Nan Gongling. Nan Gongling was the strongest disciple of the Yunhai sect in the past 100 years. He had become the Yunhai sect's patriarch when he was only 40 years old. His reputation was known throughout the world of cultivation. My father is much stronger these days than when you had last seen him. He also told me to greet you when I left to come to the Yunhai sect. Chu Zhanpeng's father was actually the patriarch of the Haoyu sect. Nan Gongling nodded and said, "Mo Xia, Chu Zhanpeng came here as a guest, how can you let him stand?" The great Chu Zhanpeng came to the Yunhai sect because he wants us to deliver him one of our ordinary disciples called Lin Feng. Mo Xia said, explaining. Because of an ordinary disciple? Asked Nan Gongling, frowning in irritation. Chu Zhanpeng quickly interrupted Mo Xia and said, Patriarch Nan Gongling, Lin Feng is the son of this junior female apprentice's uncle. That young man has no regard for his elders and betters. He has injured one of his male cousins. He also insulted and humiliated his uncle, the father of my female junior apprentice. Therefore, my female junior apprentice wanted to come to solve their personal grudges. Chu Zhanpeng was facing the great elders and the patriarch of the Yunhai sect, so he was careful not to sound too excessive with his words or he may not leave with his life. He wanted Nan Gongling to accept his request. Therefore he was using a mild and humble tone. However, Nan Gongling wasn't that kind of a person and he perfectly understood what was going on. Mo Xia, how do you want to handle this? Asked Nan Gongling. Mo Xia didn't immediately reply. He secretly glanced at one of the great elders who was standing next to Nan Gongling. That child, with no regard for his elders and betters, is guilty. He should be expelled from the sect. Mo Xia was guarded in his speech. If he had directly said that he would deliver Lin Feng to Chu Zhanpeng to save face, it would definitely anger Nan Gongling. Lin Feng was still a Yunhai sect disciple after all. How could he deliver one of his disciples to the Haoyu sect without question? But saying he would expel Lin Feng from the sect implied that everything that happened after would have nothing to do with the sect anymore, as Lin Feng wouldn't be a disciple any longer. How cruel could Mo Xia possibly be to this ordinary disciple? His own face. Nan Gongling was frowning and shaking his head. He knew exactly what Mo Xia had meant in his words. Nan Gongling would not willingly hand over any of his disciples. Patriarch, his behavior is harmful to our sect and its reputation. If he stayed in the Yunhai sect, it would be a disaster in the future. Mo Xia is begging that you expel that disciple for the well-being of the other disciples of the sect, said Mo Tsanglan, one of the great elders from the sect. Everyone around them had perfectly understood the situation. A solution had to be found. Mo Tsanglan, as one of the great elders, was also in charge of enforcement within the sect. His position within the hierarchy of the sect was extremely high. He was also Mo Xia's father. After what he said, it could be easily understood what the consequences for Lin Feng would be. Ordinary disciple, whispered Nan Gongling. He was inwardly startled but didn't show it. He didn't approve Mo Xia's decision, but Mo Tsanglan was a chief figure in the sect. Nan Gongling couldn't make Mo Tsanglan lose face because of a simple ordinary disciple. Abandoning Lin Feng was the only solution. At that moment, Nan Gongling was about to agree. Zhonng, a deep soul-piercing sound was heard, and it seemed that the sound echoed through the mountains, each vibration making all those present tremble slightly. It sounded like the gods were marching to battle in the heavens, and these were the war drums they played. The whole crowd was puzzled. Where did such a loud and terrifying sound come from? They could not think what had caused the sound they had just heard. The patriarch of the Yunhai sect, Nan Gongling, had chills run down his spine as a light twinkled in his eyes. That was the sound of the drums on the precipice of Zhangu. Mo Tsanglan was amazed. His eyes were twinkling as well. He gazed into the distance towards a certain mountain range. There was a precipice in that chain of mountains. On that overhanging cliff, there was a small room with 8 drums. The drums there had not emitted a single sound in more than 100 years. Zhangu, another drum sound was heard as if it was rushing down from beyond the highest heavens. That's the second drum. Impossible. Nan Gongling could not believe what he has just heard. Right after that, the smile on his face could not be removed. Only the most gifted and the strongest disciples, referred to as geniuses, could make the drums emit a sound. They were looking forward to announcing that the Yunhai sect had an outstanding disciple, a true genius among geniuses. Nan Gongling's mood wasn't good because of what had happened with Chu Zhanpeng. Being in such a situation because of a disciple while being a large sect like the Yunhai sect was embarrassing. But at that moment, Nan Gongling had forgotten these events and could not contain his excitement. It had been more than 100 years since the beating sound of the drums had been heard. Now he had heard the beating sound of the drums twice. I don't know who that disciple is. Unbelievably, he was able to pass the test of the precipice of Zhangu, said Nan Gongling. He was asking himself who had passed the test. He had completely forgotten that problem with Chu Zhanpeng. Zhangu, the third beating sound of the drums spread throughout the sky above the Yunhai sect. That time, almost everyone in the Yunhai sect looked at the heavens with a slight fear showing in their eyes, but some of the stronger disciples could somewhat tell the direction the sound was coming from and nothing more. The strongest disciples knew the sound they were hearing. It had been a long time since they had been so thrilled. Nan Gongling was also staring at the sky. The history of the clan dated back 1,000 years, and it had been 300 years since 3 beating drum sounds were heard. Phew, Nan Gongling was breathing deeply and struggling to contain his excitement. The patriarch of the sect was so young, and yet in his generation he would bring untold glory back to the sect. The sound of the drums from the precipice of Zhangu had given an unprecedented shock to the members of the Yunhai sect. Each time they thought the beating sound of the drums would stop, another one was heard. The sound of the drums from the precipice of Zhangu had given an unprecedented shock to the members of the Yunhai sect. Each time they thought the beating sound of the drums would stop, another one was heard. When the 7th drum sound was heard, the Yunhai sect members quieted down. Only the pure sound made from beating the drums was remaining in the total silence that had spread across the sect. The entire Yunhai sect was still in confusion, but many had the feeling of good fortune arriving on the sect. It was as if the vibrations in the air and sound coming from those drums were the only things left in the universe. It was as if the entire Yunhai sect and even the entire universe was enveloped by the power of those drums. Nan Gongling was standing with his hands clasped behind his back. He was gazing into the distance towards the precipice of the abyss with an amazed look on his face. Nan Gongling's robes were swinging in the gentle breeze that was blowing over the area. Not a sound could be heard from him. Everyone else who was standing around him, Mo Tsanglan, Mo Xia, the Yunhai sect's disciples, Ling Qi, and even Chu Zhanpeng were gazing into the distance. They had the feeling that on that mountain was a god beating his war drum to announce he had been born. A new god of war had descended. Inside the cave in the mountains, the old man wearing a black cloak had stood up and was looking at the overhanging cliff slightly surprised. He had a solemn and respectful facial expression. The old man wearing the black cloak protected the precipice of the abyss, which was a sacred place for the Yunhai sect. Even though few people knew he existed, the patriarch of the sect Nan Gongling, when he saw this elder he would bow out of respect. The old man had seen that Lin Feng was only at the 8th Qi layer and that his spirit was quite weak, so he had made him go through the passageway that led to the precipice with the hardest exam, hoping that Lin Feng would be able to return in one piece once faced with the difficulties of the exam. He had never thought that, considering the circumstances, a disciple of only 8th Qi layer while using a weak snake spirit would be the first to successfully pass that exam. What impressed the old man is that the beating sounds of the drums seemed to remain in the air for an extended time, and the entire Yunhai sect was consumed in that sound. The 7th beating sound of the drums had already been heard. In the 1,000-year history of the Yunhan sect, such a miracle had never happened. Nobody had ever managed to make the drums beat so many times, and on top of that the sounds were never this profound. The old man entered the passageway towards the precipice of Zhangu. He was walking up the flight of stairs step by step with the same respectful and solemn expression on his face as before. It looked like he was expecting the 8th beating sound of the drums. At that moment, the sword qi was still filling the atmosphere, completely creating an unknown force, but now it was no longer disorganized. It was following Lin Feng's hand, in which he was holding his long sword. Lin Feng at that moment looked invincible. The force of the sword, it can be found everywhere. Lin Feng thought while smiling. These drums were intriguingly marvelous. There had to be enough power in each attack for the drums to produce a strong enough counterattack, which could then be used to produce a beating sound. This is what Lin Feng was precisely doing at that moment. He was producing more powerful attacks to increase the sword force in the atmosphere to attack the drums so that they could produce beating sounds. I already made the drums beat 7 times. Let's make them beat one last time. That would be 8 beats for 8 drums. The last one has to be perfect, and I'll pass the test of the precipice of Zhangu. Then I will have to thank that elder, said Lin Feng. At that moment Lin Feng thought that this actually was the easiest test on Heaven Mountain within the precipice of Abyss, and the elder really had been lenient with his request. He held his long sword in his hand, and the entire atmosphere was fusing with his sword and absorbing an incredible amount of energy. Here come the drums, shouted Lin Feng. The sword qi turned into a radiant light and the drums beat one last time. The last drum emitted a sound which spread throughout the entire atmosphere of the Yunhai sect to the point that the mountains were vibrating. The vibrating sound lasted for a while. Lin Feng's dark spirit which was behind him vanished from sight. Triumphantly he sat down. With no power left he slumped his body across the floor. Now I should be able to find some pills which will cure Han Man. Even though Lin Feng was exhausted, he had a big smile on his face. A loud rumbling sound was suddenly heard. The large stone doors of the precipice opened. There was a silhouette to be seen inside the doorway. It was the old man wearing the black cloak who had pointed him to this trial. Seeing that it was the old man and remembering the familiar black cloak, Lin Feng, while struggling, he once again rose to his feet. He then said to the old man, "Elder, did I finally pass the test? Will I be able to get the pills I need for my friend?" The old man looked at Lin Feng, who had a smile on his face while still looking completely stupefied. Immediately after that an unknown expression appeared on his face. Lin Feng wasn't aware of what he had done, but maybe he had angered this esteemed elder. He hadn't come with the goal of achieving something unprecedented. He had just come to get some medicine for his friend who was injured and did not care about what he had achieved in the sect. Status and power meant nothing if he had no friends to share them with. "Of course you can," said the old man in the black cloak while smiling. He took out a jar full of unknown profound pills and threw it at Lin Feng, saying, "There are some healing pills inside. One is enough to cure your friend completely. How you use the others is something you can decide by yourself. These pills are precious and you might need them later." "Thank you, esteemed elder." Lin Feng was surprised. According to the old man, one pill was enough to cure Han Man's injuries. Such a pill was beyond extremely precious and valuable. The old man had given him an entire jar. Understanding the old man's status and strength, Lin Feng knew the old man wasn't trying to fool him but was wondering why he would go so far for such an easy test. You passed the exam, so you deserve it. However, you should remember this: don't share the fact that you passed the exam of the Precipice of Zhangu with random people, explained the old man to Lin Feng. Lin Feng had only reached the 8th Qi layer and had managed to produce 8 drum beats. No matter how Lin Feng had done that, his talent in the Yunhai sect's entire history was never seen before. He was a real genius. The old man hoped Lin Feng wouldn't raise the attention of any evil people before he had the chance to fully bloom. In the Shuiyu country, including the Yunhai sect, there were certain people who secretly hunted and killed extremely skilled and outstanding disciples before they could gain power. It was not a rare thing for jealousy to be born of those with talent. Today the sounds of the drums had been heard throughout the entire sect's territory. It would probably make him the biggest target within the sect. It would be best if he could lay low and not cause any trouble, then after a few years he would shine, otherwise his path would be a truly bloody one. Alright. Lin Feng didn't clearly understand why the old man in the black cloak was saying that, but he was still nodding his head. The old man in the black cloak raised his head and looked in the distance. Protector Bei, take him back. Lin Feng was stunned. There were only perilous cliffs and precipices here. One could see very far in the distance when looking around, and there was clearly no one else around. Obviously the old man wouldn't be talking to the air. Okay, old friend, let's go back, young'un, said a voice coming from the middle of the mountains in the distance. Lin Feng raised his head and saw someone falling down from the sky. This old man had a familiar-looking face and had 2 gigantic wings, 2 dreamlike snow-white wings. They looked like the wings of a crane. This was a crane spirit. Strong cultivators can fly, and they can even carry people through the skies. I would have never thought that the Yunhai sect had such cultivators. Lin Feng found the scene absolutely fascinating. He had the feeling a hurricane was coming and that he was unable to stand firm or move away. Sand and small stones were flying around in the air. The crane-like silhouette landed on the overhanging cliff. Lin Feng was staring. It was him. Lin Feng knew the person who had appeared. It was the old man of the Xingqin pavilion. He still looked sluggish and had a neglected appearance. He looked the same as the last time, but with a giant set of wings on his back. The elder who was in charge of protecting the Xingqin pavilion was as expected, not even slightly ordinary, said Lin Feng to himself, convinced. Young man, I will introduce you. My old friend is one of the protectors of the Yunhai sect. You can call him Protector Kong. I am one of the protectors of the Yunhai sect as well, and you can call me Protector Bei. The old man's mood seemed to be particularly good. Protectors of the sect have an extraordinary status in the hierarchy, to the extent that even if the patriarch of the sect was to see them, he would not dare be insolent. The ones who became protectors showed extreme devotion and loyalty towards the sect. Their abilities were far above that of other disciples. They only cared about the sect, that was the only thing they had in their mind. How could the Protector Bei not be happy that Lin Feng had passed the test of the Precipice of Zhangu? Protector Bei, Protector Kong. Lin Feng was smiling at the 2 old men. 2 protectors of the sect. They were probably within the strongest cultivators of the sect. Protector Kong silently nodded his head. Shortly after, he went back into the cave. His body just vanished into the darkness of the passageway. My old friend spends his time in this cave every day. It's common for him not to speak for days. He never did speak much, so it doesn't matter. Protector Bei was shaking his head. He then said to Lin Feng, we're leaving too. The crane spirit appeared briefly, its wings flapped in the air giving a hurricane-like sensation. Lin Feng only felt his body flying up in the air, guided by a mysterious power. There was nothing under his feet, only the distant ground. Lin Feng had the feeling he was dreaming. In the previous world, it would have been impossible to fly up in the air like this without the assistance of technology. However, in the continent of the Nine Clouds, extreme power and strength enabled some cultivators to look down on the world from above. Special thanks to No Name Required for this sponsored chapter. Special thanks to No Name Required for this sponsored chapter. I hope you all like the new website. We have another chapter coming shortly. I will leave you with this cliffhanger: hee, hugs and kisses. In order not to draw other people's attention and to remain discreet, Protector Bei had decided to make Lin Feng move to another room which was also designed for ordinary disciples, but it was situated in the forest, far away from many disciples. Lin Feng could not wait and started heading towards Han Man. When he passed his new training room, he didn't even give it a glance and continued forward. Lin Feng turned around and saw a disciple who was surprisingly waiting at the door of his training room. Lin Feng was annoyed because that room was supposed to be kept secret. It was disciples' sacred training place. Lin Feng wasn't expecting anyone, so how did they know where to look for him? The disciple had even taken the liberty to open the door and look inside. What if there were private or even secret things within that room? You know about the sect's rules, you are not allowed to enter other disciples' rooms. Lin Feng said as his anger was building. He knew that disciple, his name was Ho Qing. He was ranked within the top 10 ordinary disciples of the sect. He was also in charge of making sure that the rules of the sect were respected by the ordinary disciples. Lin Feng knew him because of the status he held within the sect. Besides, he also knew Lin Feng. In the Yunhai sect, Mo Tsanglan was one of the great elders. He enjoyed a high status. He was also responsible for making sure that the rules of the sect were being respected by everyone. In the Yunhai sect, the people in charge of making sure that the rules of the sect were being respected were numerous. There were some who had to watch the ordinary disciples and others who had to watch the elite disciples. Ho Qing often abused the power he had as a disciple in charge of maintaining the rules of the sect. However, Lin Feng had not expected him to dare break one of the most sacred rules within the sect. Of course, I know that rule. But such a rule doesn't need to be applied when it comes to you, piece of trash. Ho Qing looked sluggish. He wasn't looking straight into Lin Feng's eyes. In his thoughts, Lin Feng was still the piece of trash he used to be when he was at the 5th Qi layer. Follow me, said Ho Qing. I have no time. Lin Feng started walking again. Han Man was still injured and was waiting for his pills. Why would he give Ho Qing face when he had better things to do with his time? Huh? Ho Qing was stunned when he saw that Lin Feng was ignoring him. He was furious and his figure suddenly vanished. A madly strong wind started blowing and a silhouette appeared in front of Lin Feng. It was Ho Qing. Ho Qing was very proud of his agility technique as he knew how strong it was, especially when he saw Lin Feng was frowning. The piece of trash was obviously shocked by such great skills. One of the elders of the sect wants to see you. Are you not going? Said Ho Qing in a mocking tone, as if Lin Feng had been making a fool of himself. One of the elders wants to meet me, said Lin Feng, who was surprised. Was it because of the life or death arena killing? Impossible, he had killed everyone who had known his true identity. Was it because of what had happened at the Precipice of Zhangu? Impossible, Protector Kong didn't want that news to spread within the sect, Protector Bei wouldn't want that either. They definitely wouldn't let Ho Qing know about it or send him to pick up Lin Feng. They also knew he would have business with Han Man. One of the elders surprisingly wanted to meet Lin Feng and there was no reason to refuse. Wait for me for a little while, I'll be right back, said Lin Feng to Ho Qing and walked away, which left Ho Qing stunned once again. That guy had learnt that an elder wanted to see him and he dared make one of the sect elders wait. Ho Qing was furious, but he then remembered that Lin Feng was going to have to face the reality later anyway, so it was only a matter of time. Lin Feng went to Han Man's room as quickly as he could and he gave him 3 pills. Han Man gladly accepted them and swallowed them immediately. Lin Feng had given him 3 of his priceless profound healing pills to make sure there was nothing left unhealed within his friend. He made sure to sit next to the bed waiting for his recovery. Lin Feng, did you go to the precipice of the abyss? Jing Yun asked uncertain while looking at Lin Feng. Lin Feng nodded. He would not lie to Han Man or to Jing Yun, but when he remembered the words of the protectors, he could only nod without making a sound. Jing Yun already knew that he had been successful when she saw Lin Feng's expression. Jing Yun somehow knew that he had gone to the precipice of the abyss, taken some pills and come back. She also knew that if anyone could pass the exam it would be Lin Feng. Han Man had the sensation of waves that were flowing in his body from an unknown source. He opened his eyes and looked at Lin Feng in astonishment. He didn't say anything, but he felt thankful to have such an amazing friend. He could feel countless warm waves of healing energy were flowing into his body without stopping. Lin Feng. Thank you, said Han Man. During the short time he spent with Lin Feng there was already no doubt about them being true friends. Han Man would always remember the name of such a friend in his heart. If the heavens ever threatened to punish Lin Feng, then they would first have to punish Han Man in his place. What a true friend. He had killed Jing Feng and wanted to bear the consequences alone. He had shared precious items with them even though he had killed the ferocious wild beasts on his own. He was also able to kill Jiang Huai and Jing Hao by himself, and then he was also able to go to the precipice of the abyss and pass the exam only to save his friend Han Man. In this world it would be hard to find someone who would do so much for someone they had known for such a short time. Lin Feng truly valued all of his friendships and the people he would call friends. After a short time, Han Man could feel that his body had almost completely recovered. He could feel that his body was still recovering. There was no longer any pain, just the sensation of pins prickling his skin. He has shockingly recovered so fast. Jing Yun saw how quickly Han Man was recovering and that the bruises on his face had disappeared. She was amazed at how quickly the profound healing pills affected the body and how strong they were. These pills are very useful, as expected from the protectors, Lin Feng thought when he saw how quickly Han Man was recovering. Lin Feng was smiling and had finally started to relax. Han Man, since you are recovering so quickly, I can no longer stay with you as I have something I must attend. Before leaving, Lin Feng took 3 pills out of the jar and gave them to Jing Yun. He said, Jing Yun, if his injuries don't completely recover then you must immediately give him these 3 profound healing pills. I am relying on you for this task. Lin Feng, don't worry, I will do as you say. Jing Yun took the 3 profound healing pills and then watched as Lin Feng left. Lin Feng was following Ho Qing as they were going towards the stormy gorge and more precisely towards the life or death arena. Lin Feng saw that there were many disciples gathered around the arena. He had no idea what could have happened and why they were all gathered at such a place when there were no sounds of battle. More importantly, he was wondering which elder wanted to see him and for what reason. Patriarch, Elder Mo, I brought Lin Feng. Ho Qing said respectfully, taking Lin Feng to the life or death arena. This is our Yunhai sect's patriarch Nan Gongling and great elder Mo Tsanglan. Lin Feng's jaw had almost hit the ground upon those words. He didn't expect to meet such important people and they had directly called for him. He looked around and saw Chu Zhanpeng and Lin Qian. Lin Qian looked at him with a cold smile on her face. What is she doing here? Lin Feng, do you know the crimes you have committed? Mo Xia asked Lin Feng with a sinister and dark look in his eyes. Elder, I don't understand, said Lin Feng, shaking his head and feeling cold sweat dripping down his back. Mo Xia was an esteemed elder within the sect. Lin Feng felt that something really bad was about to happen. You don't understand. You are a disciple and you don't understand your elders, you hurt your brothers and sisters, insult your elders and your betters. You are the shame of the Yunhai sect. You are a disgrace. You are trash. Mo Xia had made sure to embellish the charges and even made sure to humiliate him because of the agreement he had made with Chu Zhanpeng to save face. Because Lin Feng was a mere ordinary disciple, nobody would question Chu Zhanpeng on how he had intended to dispose of him. Nobody wanted the patriarch of the Yunhai sect to be alarmed. He had embellished all these accusations in front of everyone and intended to have Lin Feng expelled from the Yunhai sect. He had made sure to apply as much pressure as possible so a mere ordinary disciple could not rebuke his accusations. Disgrace, trash, making the Yunhai sect lose face. Lin Feng's eyes looked perplexed and then he looked at Lin Qian and understood what was going on. He couldn't understand Elder Mo Xia though and why he would stand on Lin Qian's side. Even though Lin Feng wasn't a famous disciple, he was still a disciple of the sect. Why are you not talking? You can all see how guilty he is simply by his unwillingness to defend from these accusations. Mo Xia said coldly looking at Lin Feng who remained silent. Elder, you listed many of the charges against me without evidence. I am just an ordinary disciple and apparently the words of the little people do not matter much to the almighty esteemed elders of the Yunhai sect. Even if I proved my innocence, I am already deemed guilty by such a wise all-knowing and all-seeing elder. Do I need to say anything? How impudent, shouted Mo Xia who didn't expect such sharp words from Lin Feng. Lin Feng had indeed made a reference to how lowly ordinary disciples were treated and how the elders could accuse anyone of anything without even needing proof of their accusations. How dare you speak back to me? I'm one of the elders of the sect, my duty within the sect is to question disciples on their crimes. Do you even realize speaking back to an elder of the sect is a crime itself? If I don't say a word then you take it as me admitting my guilt to all of your accusations. However, when I choose to speak, you accuse me of going against an elder who is performing his duties. I, Lin Feng, would like to ask such a biased elder, who exactly are you working for? Surely the master could not have wandered far from his obedient lapdog, shouted Lin Feng. When he came to accuse Lin Feng, Mo Xia was already convinced of the crimes that he had committed as if he had witnessed them. Nothing could change his mind. He thought Lin Feng was guilty of bringing shame to the sect. He treated Lin Feng like an animal. Lin Feng knew that Mo Xia would make things difficult for him no matter what he did. Not saying a word would be a crime, but arguing would be a crime as well. Why would he need to restrain his actions when he was already guilty either way? In front of the entire crowd, all members of the sect, Lin Feng looked down on Mo Xia and was not frightened at all. Last chapter for today. Tomorrow is another slave day, but I will try and keep it to 2 to 3 chapters if possible. Last chapter for today. Tomorrow is another slave day, but I will try and keep it to 2 to 3 chapters if possible. Special thanks to all you supporters, even more to MetaZone for sponsoring this chapter. You have all made me feel so welcome and I really hope you will support Pan Pan just as much as you have me. You have really made my experience with translating this novel an absolute joy and I love you all for that, hugs and kisses so to thank you. Here is another cliffhanger. Enjoy. That guy is really brave. He actually dares to speak back to an elder. He's a madman who acts recklessly. It seems like he's tired of living. The crowd was discussing loudly looking on with eyes filled with pity. They obviously hadn't expected Lin Feng to be audacious enough to directly confront an elder. In the continent of 9 clouds, it was a period of great prosperity for the sect. The sect was so strong that it could almost call itself a nation. They could bring either peace or destruction wherever they went without anyone batting an eye. Within the sect there was a fierce competition for power. The ranks in the hierarchy were extremely strict. First, there were the ordinary disciples and the elite disciples which were the seedlings within the sect. Then there were ordinary elders and grand elders. Ordinary was the lowest ranking whether it was an elder or a disciple. Each had their own parts to play within the sect and no one went against the hierarchy. Lin Feng was an ordinary disciple and that's all. Between him and Mo Xia, the difference in status, within the hierarchy of the sect was huge. If Mo Xia wanted Lin Feng to live, then he would live, if Mo Xia wanted Lin Feng to die, then he would die. This was the difference between them. Mo Xia was shocked and embarrassed because Lin Feng had directly spoken out against him and made him look a fool. Ho Qing, is contradicting a sex elder a crime? Mo Xia said as he was intensely staring at Lin Feng and not moving at all. Arguing against an esteemed elder is the highest crime and he should be expelled from the sect. He should have his cultivation crippled for offending an elder of such high regard and then have his position in the sect revoked. Said Mo Xia. How did Ho Qing not understand what Mo Xia meant? How could he miss such a great opportunity? Elder, Ho Qing thinks that Lin Feng is guilty of all crimes of which he has been accused. He should cripple his own cultivation and should be expelled from the sect. He said with a wry smile. No need, he has worked so hard to acquire such meager skills, we should pity the pitiful. Just go cut off one of his arms and then you can expel him from the sect. Mo Xia said in a magnanimous tone as if he was being generous to Lin Feng. How vicious. Lin Feng hated him. He thought Mo Xia was unfair. It was at that moment that Mo Xia had been added to Lin Feng's list, and as long as Lin Feng lived, Mo Xia's blood would eventually spill. Lin Feng was accused of many crimes, he would be expelled from the sect no matter what. He would instantly be given to Lin Qian as a gift. He was scared that Lin Qian and that creepy young guy wouldn't let him live if they captured him. They had obviously come to take his life. In fact, it was precisely what Lin Feng had anticipated. Because they had sent an elder after him, the situation was already hopeless. He would die if he complied, he would die if he resisted. On the path of cultivation, those who don't have sufficient power and natural talent will die. The sect is also unreliable and can no longer be trusted. Lin Feng's heart was like a mirror. This world, everything that had happened, the thing you could count on is your own power. This moment was also solidifying Lin Feng's concept of this world. An elder wanted to rip his arm off and to expel him from the sect, based on false accusations, but that did not matter. Lin Feng glanced at Nan Gongling. The patriarch of the sect hadn't said a word so far. He did not want to be part of what was happening and so distanced himself. Everything requires strength and natural talent. At the moment, I am not strong, which means I need to unveil my real talent. Lin Feng's thoughts were quick. If there is no solution, then I should reveal what I did at the Precipice of Zhangu. When he had made the drums beat, 2 protectors of the sect had shown up and personally accompanied him back to the sect. Lin Feng still had doubts as the exam he had passed was an easy one. The exam that he had passed as he initially thought wasn't an easy one. He had fooled himself into thinking it was easy because of the protector's kindness. At that moment, Ho Qing was already in front of Lin Feng with evil intentions. Many people were staring at them. Even some great elders were watching with disdain at the execution of an ordinary disciple. Ho Qing was feeling nervous and excited at the same time. That was a great opportunity for him to show his skills to the elders. Piece of trash, you can cut off your arm yourself. There is a huge difference between my strength and your strength. I don't think you're worth fighting, said Ho Qing in an arrogant tone. Lin Feng saw Ho Qing's twinkling eyes and felt exasperated. Ho Qing didn't have a strong personality. For one of the best ordinary disciples, he was just a pathetic weakling. I would rather see how you were planning to take my arm, said Lin Feng while unsheathing his sword and held it firmly in front of him. He was standing calmly and didn't attempt to move an inch from where he was originally standing. He felt like an unmovable mountain, he had no fear remaining. Ha, if it has to be like that, then I will show the elders how you really are worthless, said Ho Qing, who obviously knew Lin Feng wasn't going to cut off his own arm. A moment ago he had humiliated Lin Feng and made himself appear merciful, which would have a great impact on the elders. Dancing wind, agility technique. Ho Qing vanished in a flash. Dancing wind, agility technique. He had mastered his agility technique to perfection. His moves were so quick it was as if he was dancing on the wind. Fellow disciple Ho Qing is amongst the 10 best ordinary disciples. His agility techniques are outstanding for someone within the ordinary disciples. How could Lin Feng compete with him? That guy can still stand and look that calm. He's looking for death, this fight is already over. The crowd was looking at Ho Qing, who was as quick as the wind. The crowd was loud. Ho Qing was one of the best ordinary disciples. When he was using his agility techniques, even those who were higher in rankings than him were not able to match his speed. When Mo Xia saw Ho Qing's agility technique, he smiled a confident smile. It seemed like Ho Qing's strength had increased again. He hoped Ho Qing would be able to be one of the 5 best ordinary disciples of the sect by the beginning of the following year, so that Mo Xia as his teacher would also gain in reputation. Whether Ho Qing could defeat Lin Feng or not, Mo Xia had never considered that as a plausible question. Lin Feng was merely at the 8th Qi layer. He estimated that Lin Feng would only be able to make 3 moves before Ho Qing took his arm, without Lin Feng being able to see his movements. Amongst the people who were present, sadly it seemed like there was only Lin Feng who believed that he would win, everyone else was prepared to see Lin Feng's blood. He was holding his sword out with only one hand and he stood motionless like a mountain. Ho Qing was incredibly quick and did not stop dancing from side to side around Lin Feng. At that moment, a strong whistling wind appeared and Lin Feng's robes were like a flag in the wind. His long hair was flying in all directions, yet he still remained unmoving. Suddenly, Ho Qing's silhouette vanished again. It's the end. Fellow disciple Ho Qing's agility techniques are just too exceptional for even elite disciples. The battle hadn't even really started that the crowd was already coming to conclusions. Everybody could only see that Lin Feng had closed his eyes. He was feeling calm and his robes were still being blown by the wind created from Ho Qing dancing around him. His breathing was steady and his heart was calm. Suddenly, he stopped breathing and only concentrated all of his senses on the current location of his opponent. Lin Feng's sword suddenly moved. His sword was dancing on the wind as if copying Ho Qing's skill. He looked graceful and agile with only calmness on his face. A loud scream was heard coming from above Lin Feng's head. Suddenly an oppressive energy filled the atmosphere and shocked many of the onlookers. Too weak, Lin Feng only said these 2 words. His sword was still shining and spotless. Right after that, the entire crowd saw blood splash in all directions. The whole crowd was gasping in shock. What they were looking at was inconceivable. Ho Qing had been unable even retaliate against Lin Feng. He had lost. It had been an easy win for Lin Feng. He had cut off one of Ho Qing's arms in a single strike during Ho Qing's agility technique. How is that even possible? How did Lin Feng do that? Shouted some of the ordinary disciples. They were extremely surprised, especially since many of them had heard Lin Feng's reputation and that he was called a piece of trash by many ordinary disciples. How could he have cut off one of Ho Qing's arms in one attack with such little effort? All these ordinary disciples hadn't seen clearly how Lin Feng had attacked, but the elite disciples had all seen very clearly. Lin Feng had been so quick using his sword that he had managed to borrow strength from the wind and cut Ho Qing's arm. To many onlookers it seemed that it was actually the wind itself which cut off the arm before the sword had even reached. A sword that can fuse with the wind and borrow its strength. Did the Xingchen Pavilion have such sword skills? Asked Nan Gongling, as it was the first time in his life that he had seen such a thing. Lin Feng's swordplay had been wonderful. It could really been defined as perfect. He hadn't used any unnecessary strength in his attack. He had followed the wind and had cut off one of Ho Qing's arms. This was Lin Feng's exact goal, as if he had wanted to take Ho Qing's life, he could have done that in one hit before anyone was able to react. Lin Feng hadn't practiced any particular skill for his sword to fuse with the wind. It was just an insight that he had gained when he was at the Precipice of Zhangu. He had realized that the sword, the sky as well as the all things within creation, all had a force which could be used. The sword had a sword force, the wind had a wind force. He had just used that wind force. He had followed the wind with his sword, which had created a fusion between the sword and the wind, and then cleanly sliced off his opponent's arm. Wasn't that him using the wind force? Asked Nan Gongling, considering that possibility. But he immediately rejected that idea because Lin Feng was only at the 8th Qi layer. How would he be able to comprehend what using the force of wind was? A cultivator of the Qi layer couldn't use forces from the elements. Only cultivators who had reached the Ling Qi layer and a few geniuses were able to use forces of the elements. If a cultivator of the Qi layer wanted to use those forces, he could only do that using the power of his spirit. A cultivator could use forces only by using his spirit, but during that fight, Lin Feng hadn't released his spirit at all. That piece of trash has become strong. No wonder he became insane. However, as far as I'm concerned, that piece of trash is as before, still a piece of trash. That will not change today. Thought Lin Qian, who had seen Lin Feng cut off his opponent's arm in one hit and one single attempt. She was at the Ling Qi layer and her spirit was becoming stronger and stronger and was on the brink of awakening. She had an ice and fire universal spirit. That small piece of trash, Lin Feng, was no match for her. Mo Xia looked extremely embarrassed at that moment. He had appointed Ho Qing to cut off Lin Feng's arm and hadn't thought Lin Feng would cut off one of Ho Qing's arms effortlessly in a single strike. It was as if he had been slapped in the face. Lin Feng had to die. Lin Feng hadn't noticed everybody's face. He was looking just as calm as before. He had put his sword carefully back into his scabbard. He looked at Ho Qing, who was on the ground, on his knees, and didn't feel the least bit of pity. He just continued to stay unmoving as if nothing had happened. One of the top 10 within the ordinary disciples ranking. It's clear that when you said I was not worth fighting that you were not prepared to lose your own arm. Lin Feng was looking at Ho Qing mockingly and said, I really don't understand why you allow yourself to be that arrogant when you are so pathetically weak. I would be ashamed if I was your teacher. Extra special thanks to Joseph G. He has been extremely supportive of this series and is clearly an addict. He has been a complete darling from the start. Thank you, hugs and kisses. Extra special thanks to Joseph G. He has been extremely supportive of this series and is clearly an addict. He has been a complete darling from the start. Thank you, hugs and kisses. This is the first of 2 chapters which have been sponsored today. I will not be staying up extremely late like yesterday as I have work, so all donations from here on out will go to sponsored chapters during the week. Ho Qing was using his other hand to cover the bloody wound where his arm used to be. Blood was pouring endlessly out of the wound and through his fingers to form a puddle on the floor. He looked absolutely terrified and couldn't come to grips with how he had lost his arm. The scene was so shocking that no one could believe what they had just seen. It must have been luck. If you didn't have such good luck then. Ho Qing said while looking at Lin Feng in a sinister way. At that moment he still believed that Lin Feng hadn't beaten him and that Lin Feng's strength was hugely inferior to his. Everything that happened when he randomly swung his sword must have been luck. How could he even know where Ho Qing was? Lin Feng had just been lucky and when he was slashing the air managed to accidentally strike the arm. Ho Qing wasn't the only one to think that way, many ordinary disciples within the crowd had the same train of thought. They really couldn't believe that Lin Feng had seen Ho Qing moving at such high speeds and simply used a single strike to accurately slice off his arm. I do indeed have great luck. Lin Feng looked surprised for a second then smiled and replied. He had really been lucky indeed to have this opportunity to knock Ho Qing down a notch. Next time, I will not go easy on you and I will give you no chance to retaliate, said Ho Qing walking unsteadily. He moved away from Lin Feng and moved through the crowd of disciples. His arm had been cut cleanly off and this was not an injury he could leave without medical assistance. His wound required medical assistance as quickly as possible or he would lose his life along with his arm. He had already lost so much blood that it was hard for him to stand. I hope that you will not be as foolish as to challenge me to a next time, said Lin Feng feeling powerless and shaking his head. Ho Qing still didn't accept the fact that he had lost and attributed Lin Feng's victory to luck. With that kind of temperament then he would come back for revenge and end up losing his other arm. You dare to injure a disciple in charge of dealing out justice when the sect's rules are not respected. The sect doesn't mean anything to you, it's clear in your eyes that you see us as something you can disrespect. Mo Xia was blaming Lin Feng once again, accusing him of whatever he wished to suit his needs at the time. While smiling, Lin Feng said to Mo Xia, "It's easy to give a dog a bad name and then hang him. If I understand what you mean properly, you're saying that I should have let him cut my arm and then get expelled from the sect, and on top of that I should still have the sect in my heart. Don't you think that your analysis in itself is ridiculous and laughable, Elder?" Lin Feng was provoking Elder Mo. They all wanted to cut off his arm then expel him from the sect, and on top on that they wanted him to care about giving the sect the respect it deserves. Lin Feng admired Mo Xia for being able to say such stupid things with a straight face. "Patriarch, am I allowed to add something to what has been said already?" asked Lin Feng, completely disregarding Mo Xia yet again. If there was someone who had the power to make decisions in this situation, it was definitely Nan Gongling. Nan Gongling had an expression on his face which showed that he couldn't help but be interested in this young disciple. He was very interested in Lin Feng and his actions. Lin Feng was neither overbearing nor subservient, neither arrogant nor humble. Lin Feng was completely calm and composed even though in such a seemingly disastrous position. That was exactly the temperament required to be a great cultivator and to improve with leaps and bounds on the path of cultivation. "You may speak," Nan Gongling said, nodding his head. "Patriarch, I was told to come over as an elder wanted to meet with me personally. I upon arrival immediately heard the elder accuse me of various things, namely of being guilty of bringing shame upon the sect's name and making the sect lose face. He called me the disgrace of the sect and a piece of trash. When I try to provide an explanation to defend myself, he immediately calls me names and says I am contradicting him. Because I chose to defend my innocence, he wants my arm to get cut off. I would like to ask, isn't it Elder Mo, who made his decision based on his own personal opinion, guilty of bringing shame to the sect and causing it to lose face? As an elder in charge of making sure that the rules are respected, isn't he supposed to represent the sect in dealing out justice, rather than upholding his own biased injustice?" Lin Feng's sharp and precise words had shocked the entire crowd, who now really believed he had gone insane. Audacious, a strong qi had surrounded Lin Feng where he stood. Mo Xia hated Lin Feng so much that he wanted to kill him there on the spot before he could lose any more face to this young disciple's words. "I am not audacious. The sect wants to abandon and expel me without finding the truth behind the accusations. Why not be audacious anyway? I would like to ask you, Elder Mo, the crimes you accuse me of, who said I had committed them in the first place?" Lin Feng was smiling and completely calm. He wasn't scared of confronting Mo Xia. "You trash. You injure your own family members, you humiliate your elders. Do you not dare admit it?" Lin Qian said in a cold tone. "So that's how it is." "I see," said Lin Feng, smiling. "It seems that the crimes Elder Mo accused me of came from her. It was my cousin who told you all of this, correct?" "Yes, so what?" said Mo Xia, whose murderous intentions were becoming stronger and stronger in the depths of his heart. Even if Lin Qian and Chu Zhanpeng were not the ones to land the killing blow, they still wished for his death. "He, since you admit it, Elder Mo, I would like to ask you a question in the presence of the Patriarch. You listened to her side of the story in order to accuse me of various crimes, but are you an elder of the Yunhai sect or an elder of the Haoyu sect? How dare you? Daring to humiliate me, an esteemed elder within the sect. I will cripple your cultivation now. Clear out the way. There is no more room for discussion." Mo Xia had come to the end of his patience. Allowing Lin Feng to talk that way about him had caused his brilliance and reputation as an elder to be completely ruined. Everybody here knows what is right and what is wrong. It's just that I am not an elite disciple within the sect, so I cannot defend myself. Only the strong were respected. If you want to cripple my cultivation, just do it. There is no need make up groundless fabricated charges against me. While Lin Feng said that, he didn't stop looking at Nan Gongling. If Nan Gongling prevented Mo Xia from attacking, Lin Feng would still be a Yunhai sect disciple in his heart even if he was expelled. However, if Nan Gongling let him attack, then Lin Feng would quickly tell them what had happened at the Precipice of Zhangu. Then, during the confusion, Lin Feng would escape, as it could get dangerous for him and he wouldn't want to be a Yunhai sect disciple anymore anyway. If the sect didn't want Lin Feng, why would he need the sect? Lin Feng didn't have the least bit of servility in the depths of his heart and bones. He would never be any man's servant as long as he lived. Nan Gongling was carefully considering everything that had happened. Mo Xia was moving closer and preparing to swiftly attack Lin Feng. Nan Gongling was paying attention to Lin Feng's facial expression. He was staring at Lin Feng's completely calm eyes with intrigue. His will and determination are extremely strong. He remains absolutely calm when facing danger. Besides, his natural abilities are good. He could join the elite disciples in a few years. He could become a very important person within the sect, and one day we may require talent such as his. Mo Xia is an esteemed elder. His achievements on the path of cultivation are not insignificant. His natural talent and hard work also plays an important role in his development. He could climb up the hierarchy in the future. Even though what is happening today is Mo Xia's fault, he is an elder after all, and besides, he is Mo Zhanglan's son. Nan Gongling was considering everything that had occurred and calculating his response at extremely quick speeds. He was the patriarch of the sect. Whatever problem there is, he must always distinguish things clearly and understand the advantages and disadvantages of doing something. If something can be of benefit to the sect, then it has to be done. If it is unfavorable for the sect, then it shouldn't be done. This was the simple understanding which all patriarchs followed. He of course knew that Mo Xia had made a mistake concerning the ongoing problems. The problem was that if he stopped Mo Xia from acting, it would be the same as making him lose face. If he allowed him to attack, he would feel a great loss for the sect in his heart. Besides, he had no choice but to take into consideration Mo Zhanglan as well and couldn't make him lose face either. After all, Mo Zhanglan had the status of great elder within the sect. He had rendered heroic services to the sect. As a comparison, there was Lin Feng, who certainly had some potential, but he truly was an insignificant figure compared to the elders. Nan Gonglin's hesitations made Lin Feng laugh at himself for ever believing in the sect. He laughed at his own ignorance. Even though he had defeated Ho Qing, one of the 10 best ordinary disciples, Lin Feng was still in everyone's eyes an ordinary disciple. Besides, Mo Xia was an esteemed sect elder. How could Nan Gongling make Mo Xia lose face because of Lin Feng? Lin Feng wasn't extremely strong, so he shouldn't put himself in dangerous situations. In their minds it was Lin Feng's own fault for not being strong enough or having enough talent to be worth protecting. Ignorant child. Mo Xia said, as he was getting closer to Lin Feng. These words stabbed Lin Feng's eardrums. His smile revealed his murderous intentions. He wanted to kill Lin Feng. He was an ordinary disciple, nothing more. Actually daring to oppose Mo Xia would be really reckless. Lin Feng is dead, shouted disciples in the crowd. But Lin Feng could only blame his own powerlessness. What a pity that I can't cripple his cultivation myself, said Lin Qian while smiling coldly. It was quite an unexpected situation for Lin Qian, but the result was the same. Those were Lin Feng's last moments anyway. A strong and powerful energy was paralyzing Lin Feng. The hair all over his body was erected. He was about to open his mouth, but at that moment the force oppressing him all over his body disappeared without leaving trace. Huh? Lin Feng was stunned. That was unexpected. How could that force suddenly vanish? Besides, how could it disappear that way without leaving trace? Mo Xia wasn't far from Lin Feng, but at that moment he stopped walking towards Lin Feng. Mo Xia's pupils were dilated as if he had seen something unimaginable. Furthermore, a godly strength was oppressing Mo Xia's entire body. Many people didn't understand why Mo Xia had stopped. Nan Gongling as well as Emode Lan were all astonished at these turn of events. Lin Feng was looking at Emo Xie's expression and then looked at his body. Lin Feng was as shocked as everyone else and could hardly believe what he was seeing. I'm not mistaken, Lin Feng was so shocked that his eyes couldn't be more open than at that moment. On Emo Xie's body, there was a shadow which looked like a human body. Besides, that shadow was moving even though Emo Xie was like paralyzed. It's a shadow. It really looked like exactly like a human's shadow. The scariest thing though was that Lin Feng could only see the shadow but couldn't see to whom it belonged. It wasn't only Lin Feng paying attention, the patriarch as well as everyone was abnormally shocked and looking at the shadow enveloping Emo Xie's body. "Come back, get lost you trash," said a voice which filled the entire area. Only the voice could be heard. Nobody could see who had said it, but the voice felt like it contained an immense power which shook everyone to their core. The voice which they had heard made many people start trembling in fear, many wanted to drop to their knees. That shadow which had come out of the void had scared everyone present and their bodies were begging to escape with an almost primal instinct. This is the second sponsored chapter for today. Special thanks to Ling Qi for bringing this chapter to us. As a bonus, it is not a cliffhanger. I am not that evil. This is the second sponsored chapter for today. Special thanks to Ling Qi for bringing this chapter to us. As a bonus, it is not a cliffhanger. I am not that evil. I hope you all enjoy the story and continue to support the work. Happy reading. I hope I didn't make any mistakes in my sleepy days. I will be popping off to bed shortly, so good night all, sweet dreams, hugs and kisses. Emo Xie looked down and saw the dark shadow which was moving under his skin. It gave him an ice-cold sensation which ran all the way down his spine. What sort of nightmarish thing is this to be moving under the skin of its victim? He could feel that he no longer had control of his own body. Emo Xie could barely move his body under the power of the shadow. He could feel that there was a man facing him and that man was using his energy to paralyze him through the shadow, but he couldn't detect where he was or who he was. It was as if he didn't exist. "That is actually him," said Nan Gongling, whose eyes were twinkling. He was stunned. He couldn't believe that the one controlling the shadow was actually inside Emo Xie's body. The shadow suddenly emerged from Emo Xie's back. "Emo Xie, come back," shouted Emode Lan. He was one of the great elders of the Yunhai sect, how could he not be scared of what he had just witnessed? He was already 60 years old and had a broad knowledge about the techniques of cultivators within the world and knew of many types of spirits. He knew about the origin of the shadow and exactly how dangerous this situation was. It is a shadow spirit. It's an extremely mysterious but dangerous kind of spirit. It is said that if a cultivator has a shadow spirit and it awakens, that cultivator would be able to penetrate into the body of others and take complete control of the bodily functions. Some powerful spirits can even stop a person from breathing while inside them, forcing them to suffocate without being able to defend themselves. The scariest part of a shadow cultivator was the fact that once inside your body, how would you attack them without causing damage to yourself? With each attack you may cause the shadow no damage but weaken your own defenses against the shadow. The shadow spirit could bring fear to even the most battle-hardened cultivators. If the owner of a shadow spirit was evil and wanted to kill someone, it'd be very easy for them to do so. Nobody wanted to offend the owner of a shadow spirit no matter what their level of cultivation. Emode Lan definitely did not want his family to offend a shadow cultivator. Emo Xie took a few steps back while looking extremely pale. He was unable to do anything. He was so shocked by what had just happened to him, such a strong power completely consumed him. "Greeting fellow cultivator, I don't know who you are or how we can assist you, but we will try. What brings you to us?" Emode Lan asked the shadow which was moving on the ground. He thought the person controlling the shadow was at the same place as the shadow. Take care of your sect and not your own personal grudges. Don't try to see where you can take advantage of other people within the sect, and the members of the sect will be able to keep their face." The voice echoed through the atmosphere again. With a gentle breeze, the shadow suddenly disappeared from sight completely. How terrifying! Everyone in the crowd could feel their heart in their throat. At this point it was hard for anyone to take a breath. The aura was so oppressive and the shadow spirit was terrifying. Who was that man? It briefly seemed like he was talking directly to the patriarch. Discussions could be heard all around. It must be someone who is guarding the sect's best interests in secret. This is why he got involved, because we were giving a disciple to another sect. The great elders of the sect surprisingly didn't know anything about this either. It seemed like a Yunhai sect had a hidden dragon. Nan Gongling had a wry smile on his face. There was only one person who knew to whom the shadow belonged, and it was him. When Nan Gongling thought of what he had done, he felt guilty. He weighed the pros and the cons of the different possibilities and took his position within the sect very seriously. He always tried to do everything for the benefit of the sect but had somehow forgotten the reputation of the sect that time. He had worried about personal gains and losses too much, without considering the sect as a whole. "Chu Zhanpeng, let's finish for today. Please send your father my best regards," said Nan Gongling while looking at Chu Zhanpeng. Finish for today? Lin Qian was stunned. How could she leave and let Lin Feng off? "Senior, please," Lin Qian said in a low voice expressing anxiety. Chu Zhanpeng then smiled and said, "Patriarch Nan Gongling, I came to Yunhai sect because I think you have many geniuses and heroic cultivators within your sect. I really looked forward to seeing them. I don't know who, amongst all the disciples of the sect, wants to practice with me. We could exchange pointers and it will definitely help us both gain insights." Even if Chu Zhanpeng's words sounded moderate and polite, he had no other choice but to talk that way. He wanted to provoke the sect into fighting and losing face. Lin Feng understood everything perfectly. It all became very clear. He understood the reason why Lin Qian and the evil-looking man had come to the Yunhai sect. "Junior Patriarch Chu Zhanpeng, you are famous throughout the country, everyone knows your name. Our disciples in the Yunhai sect would have to practice very hard to engage in a balanced battle with you. If there is an opportunity at some point for a fight, I would be pleased to inform you and you could return at that time." Patriarch Nan Gongling, do all of the Haoyu sect's disciples hold their life in no regard? "It seems you would like me to repeat myself," said Nan Gongling in an extremely cold tone. Chu Zhanpeng still wanted to talk this matter over. Nan Gongling had already given him 2 hints that he wanted the two of them to leave. He had done his best not to make him lose face. Maybe Chu Zhanpeng had inherent skills and abilities, but he was very proud and was making the patriarch of the Yunhai sect lose face. The Haoyu sect was stronger than the Yunhai sect, but Nan Gongling was older and stronger than Chu Zhanpeng. Would he really dare make the patriarch lose face within their own territory? Chu Zhanpeng seemed extremely tense as he forced the words from his mouth and said, while smiling, "All right, I will take my leave." His rock spirit flew away, creating a hurricane-like wind behind. Chu Zhanpeng was holding Lin Qian as they were both riding the flying rock spirit. The hurricane-like wind created by the rock spirit was so strong that many people fell down. Everyone was confused at what had just happened. "I, Chu Zhanpeng, will remember this." The legendary bird flew away high in the sky. Those who had fallen down got back on their feet. Everyone in the crowd was feeling depressed. Chu Zhanpeng had belittled them and their sect. "Lin Feng, during the annual meeting, I will kill you. Unless you plan to hide behind the Yunhai sect forever," Lin Qian said. Lin Feng looked at the flying rock. He had a cold smile deep within his heart. Did he need to hide in the Yunhai sect? Nan Gongling looked at the crowd on the ground. He had lost face, but Chu Zhanpeng was too arrogant and nobody in the sect could confront him openly. "In 5 years, I hope there will be someone in the Yunhai sect who has reached the same level on the path of cultivation as Chu Zhanpeng," said Nan Gongling. Even if Chu Zhanpeng was one of the officials within the Shuiyu country, that didn't justify his arrogance. The Yunhai sect didn't know how powerful the other high officials of the country were, but they knew the incredibly strong cultivation of Chu Zhanpeng. Let's finish for today. Everybody, go back now. Nan Gongling waved and told the crowd to disperse and resume training. Mo Xia wasn't moving. He was looking at Lin Feng with pure hatred filling his eyes. Of course, Lin Feng would remember Elder Mo and would take his revenge. I said we're done for today, shouted Nan Gongling loudly to Mo Xia, who was still staring at Lin Feng. His voice made Mo Xia shiver. He then left and followed Nan Gongling. I must be careful and pay close attention to that guy from now on, said Lin Feng to himself. He was so weak at this moment. He had a long way to go until he'd reach Mo Xia's level on the path of cultivation. Lin Feng was about to leave but then heard a voice. If you want people to respect you, you have no choice but to become strong and powerful. Otherwise, you will be humiliated, and even if you die, nobody will care. Lin Feng stopped. These were Nan Gongling's words. Lin Feng had heard them and taken them to heart. Of course, I know, Lin Feng said, and felt a certain warmth in his heart which made him smile in his thoughts. Lin Feng was on his way to become stronger. Lin Feng was sitting cross-legged in the mountains, in a cave, meditating. The qi of the heaven and earth turned into a white light which drowned into Lin Feng's body and was strengthening his bones while making his flesh more resilient. Cultivating and practicing. Lin Feng had been training so hard that you could clearly see his strength increasing by leaps and bounds. The qi of heaven and earth had purified his blood and made his entire body stronger. That qi had drowned into his body and been completely absorbed without wasting even the slightest amount. He was getting stronger with each passing moment. Qi layer, this was the first level of cultivation. A cultivator had only the basics at that level. It only made your basic qi a bit stronger. Becoming stronger was only possible by cultivating more than anyone else and training harder than everyone else. Lin Feng was eager to improve his strength. He needed to become stronger than anyone. He was eager to break through to the Ling Qi layer. Only then would he be able to become an elite disciple. Everybody would be forced to respect his power then. If he managed to break through to the Ling Qi layer, his spirit would awaken. With his spirits and his mastery, he would become a fearsome opponent. Exactly like Chu Zhanpeng and Lin Qian, whose spirits had awakened. Chu Zhanpeng could fly high in the sky and carry people on the back of his spirit. Lin Qian could control ice and fire by using her universal spirit. Lin Feng trusted that if his strength and power increased, his spirit would awaken, and with his spirit he could increase his strength many times. Therefore, once Han Man recovered from his injuries completely, Lin Feng would go into closed-door training within one of the 8 mountains and cultivate, hoping to break through to the Ling Qi layer as quickly as possible. He has understood that he would need to increase his strength or he would not be respected in this world. Sorry for the late chapter. This is the regular release from Monday. I had half translated the content yesterday, but I have been extremely sick. It appears I may have pushed myself too hard during the weekend, along with meeting a friend who had just got over a virus, was probably not the best idea. I am slowly recovering in my PJs and I look a complete mess. Sorry for the late chapter. This is the regular release from Monday. I had half translated the content yesterday, but I have been extremely sick. It appears I may have pushed myself too hard during the weekend, along with meeting a friend who had just got over a virus, was probably not the best idea. I am slowly recovering in my PJs and I look a complete mess. I hope you all enjoy this chapter. Please let me know if I made any mistakes in my poorly state and I will fix them. I will be back at full power soon. Good news is I can get some extra translating done when I feel better. Hugs and kisses. 10 days later, Lin Feng's qi had become much stronger. There was a brilliant milky white aura around him as he sat meditating. Outside his training cave there were two silhouettes in the distance who were getting closer and closer to the cave in which Lin Feng was cultivating. This is such a nice place. It's so peaceful and quiet. This place would be extremely beneficial to our cultivation, said the young man who saw the cave. He couldn't help himself but smile radiantly. Shuai, should we practice here? I thought you didn't want to practice, said the girl standing next to him who was radiating sex appeal. She was wearing a skin-tight red robe which looked like a gentle fire was hugging all of her curves. She was extremely attractive. Hee, when I'm with the incredibly beautiful Shuai and have such beautiful scenery around, then wouldn't it be more fun to press you between my legs rather than do something boring like training? The young man was incredibly thin and pale, he didn't look like a cultivator. The girl wearing the tight red robes looked at the young man with a hint of disdain. She didn't refuse the opportunity to train though. Cultivators required extremely large amounts of money when training because to have access to weapons and profound pills of high quality, it would require extremely large sums of money. If you were born from an ordinary family and didn't dare to go hunt and kill some ferocious wild beasts, it was impossible for you to receive the help of such treasures. The girl who was wearing the skin-tight red robe could be seen with a glance to not have much talent and her family was probably commoners or of very low status. Because she wanted to improve quickly on the patch of cultivation, she stuck together with the thin young guy, no matter how unpleasant it was. Lu Fei was 18 years old and had reached the 9th Qi layer. He could borrow the forces from the elements and was naturally talented. His status was also secured by his brother, Lu Yang, who was an elite disciple of the sect. Therefore the young girl, Shui Huan, would have sexual relations with Lu Fei so that she could get some profound pills for training and at the same time could enjoy carnal pleasures. When they entered the cave, they saw Lin Feng sitting in a meditative position and cultivating. They looked at each other with a confused look. They would never have thought that this cave far away from the view of others would be occupied for training. It seems like we have to find another place, Shui Huan said with regret. Find another place? Why? I can tell he is at the 8th Qi layer. I will make him go somewhere else to train, said Lu Fei shaking his head. It's not good to disturb others' training, said Shui Huan politely smiling. Chill out, that guy's strength is low, he's weak. Wait here, I'll go cripple his cultivation for ruining the mood before I throw him out of here, said Lu Fei with an evil smile on his face. There were some strong cultivators who would attack weak cultivators practicing in caves for no other reason than causing them a minor irritation. It was a risky thing to do though, because if these weak cultivators became strong, they would seek revenge, so even some cruel cultivators didn't dare and do it. Those who still did these types of attacks would cruelly cripple the opponent's cultivation to stop any chances of revenge. Shui Huan giggled and just nodded without saying anything. She agreed because people who went to caves were very few and a cave was really a great place to practice. Only the strong could use those benefits. Little boy, wake up, said Lu Fei in a cold mocking tone while sensing Lin Feng's qi. Lin Feng opened his eyes. There was an incredibly cold killing intent which filled the cave. He had been woken up by Lu Fei and Shui Huan when they had come into the cave, but he thought they would leave without bothering his training. It seemed like his thoughts were a bit too simplistic, these people's intentions were worse than what he could imagine. He had heard them discussing what their intentions were. You want to kick me out and cripple my cultivation? Asked Lin Feng coldly. If you heard what I said, then get moving and cripple your cultivation yourself, if you do it yourself it will be less painful, said Lu Fei. Very good, said Lin Feng nodding. He stood up right after and slowly walked towards Lu Fei. You haven't crippled your own cultivation and you think you can just walk away, said Lu Fei smiling coldly to Lin Feng who was about to leave. Did I ever say that I was planning to leave, said Lin Feng with a teasing expression on his face. He suddenly stamped on the ground which made the entire cave shake. Right after, Lin Feng flew out of the cave at incredible speed directly at Lu Fei. Huh? Lu Fei frowned. as he had suddenly seen the fist that was flying towards him. Boom! Ah! Lu Fei's arm broke into pieces and was hanging loosely from his shoulder. A devilish hand appeared around his neck and lifted him off the ground. I want to ask you, how did you intend to cripple my cultivation? Asked Lin Feng, looking at Lu Fei. His body was emitting a cold and deathly qi. Shui Huan looked pale. She had never expected Lin Feng to be this strong. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I didn't know you were so strong. Let me go, please. I will just leave peacefully. Lu Fei grabbed Lin Feng's arm with his hand. He was trying to make Lin Feng let go of his neck. His voice was shaky and he was struggling to breathe. Do you think that saying you know you were wrong is enough? Lu Fei thought he was the stronger cultivator at the beginning. He wanted to cripple Lin Feng's cultivation and then force him from the training cave so he could do immoral acts with the young girl. At that moment he knew he couldn't escape. Saying that he knew he was wrong, would it really be enough? That would be too easy. If Lin Feng had indeed been weaker than Lu Fei would have already crippled his cultivation. If you want to cripple other people's cultivation, you must take into consideration that they may be able to cripple yours as well. Said Lin Feng, punching Lu Fei Dantian with incredible force, which made him shoot through the air and land heavily on the ground several meters away. Lin Feng then looked at Shui Huan standing on the other side and shouted at her, "Get lost." Shui Huan was shaking a little. She ran out towards Lu Fei and helped him leave the cave together with her. You dare to cripple my cultivation, I can only be satisfied with your death. Shouted a voice outside of the cave. Lin Feng ignored the shouts and kept practicing. But then, shortly after, he was interrupted again. Lu Fei and Huan Shui had come back, and this time, they had brought another disciple with them. This disciple seemed to be 19 years old. He resembled Lu Fei a bit, but his face looked like that of an eagle. He looked even more evil than Lu Fei. Bro, that bastard broke my arm. He also crippled my cultivation. Go and kill him for me. Lu Fei said as his face was twisted in anger like a demon. Don't worry, I will cripple his cultivation, break both his arms and legs, which will be your revenge. Lu Yan said while staring at Lin Feng, which gave him the feeling that a fierce animal was gazing at him. All right, said Lu Fei while nodding. Lin Feng frowned. Even though Lu Yang hadn't shown his qi yet, Lin Feng could feel, by looking at Lu Yang's eyes, that he was much stronger than Lu Fei, and even stronger than Jing Hao, who was ranked 6th within the ordinary disciples. You dared cripple my brother's cultivation, I will show you how terrible the consequences are, said Lu Yan to Lin Feng. Lin Feng said nothing and took a few steps forward. The energy in his entire body suddenly changed and became oppressively powerful. The entire atmosphere around them began to fill with insanely strong waves of energy. Lin Feng had used his 9 heavy waves, which made the entire space around them vibrate. The air around them began to howl with the power emitted by these waves. Lin Feng, who was at the 8th qi layer, could use his 9 heavy waves to increase the power of his strikes, and they could emit strength beyond 9,000 jin. It could even reach 9,500 jin at times. Each of his attacks would be extremely powerful. You intentionally hide your skills as a cultivator to target those weaker, and you even crippled my brother's cultivation, but your strength is still not enough to fight against me. When Lu Yang felt Lin Feng's power, he thought that he was actually at the 9th qi layer. He had thought that it was due to his brother's ignorance. His brother enjoyed that young girl's presence and had offended a strong cultivator while he was training. A blood-curdling shout suddenly burst through the atmosphere. Lu Yang was the one that had shouted. It didn't sound like a sound a human could make at all. It sounded like the howl of an extremely violent, ferocious beast. Lu Yang had transformed his hand into claws and his qi was turning into demonic qi. As 9 heavy waves touched the claw, Lin Feng immediately retreated and looked at his own hand. His skin was ripped off and there was blood. His hand in that brief encounter had become extremely painful. Ling Qi layer, said Lin Feng while looking at Lu Yang. Lin Feng could already carry out attacks with the strength of 9,500 Jin, but Lu Liang could stop them. Lin Feng knew that his opponent had already surpassed the original Qi layer of strength. You're finally regretting what you've done now, what a pity. It's already too late, said Lu Liang mockingly. He didn't deny that he had already reached the Ling Qi layer. He actually had reached this level of strength a few months before. He was extremely strong. When releasing his qi outside of his body, he could greatly increase his power. A cultivator of the qi layer had no chance against a cultivator of the Ling Qi layer. I regret indeed. I regret that I didn't kill Lu Fei a moment ago and spared his pathetic little life, Lin Feng said while unsheathing his long sword from his back. He started moving extremely quickly using his moonlight feather agility. It was better to fight than die while cowering. Thunderous roars started spreading throughout the atmosphere of the mountain. Lin Feng's long sword started to glow with a radiant light and thrust towards Lu Liang, about to stab him. Lu Liang couldn't avoid the attack. His claws like hooks immediately faced the sword and grabbed it before it could stab through his body. The collision between Lin Feng's long sword and Lu Liang's claws created an explosion of power. Lin Feng's sword was pushed slightly aside. Roaring thunder, shouted Lin Feng. His sword emitted a whistling sound and then a rumbling noise. When Lu Liang's claws touched Lin Feng's sword, Lu Liang felt a strong and violent power resembling the power of a storm. Whoosh! Lin Feng's long sword looked like the wind. The sound of the sword coupled with the sound of the thunderous roars was extremely terrifying to the onlookers. Boom! A strong force was emitted. Lu Liang suddenly released his spirit. It was a mighty eagle spirit which fell within the category of beast spirits. The eagle spirit was an extremely violent and wild spirit. Chu Zhanpang's rock spirit had more magnificence than the eagle spirit. The sound of the eagle was heard. Lu Liang's claws were glowing. The light that was glowing on his claws became a single streak of light and enveloped Lin Feng's long sword in a flash. You cannot compete with someone of the Ling Qi layer with your level of strength, said Lu Liang, whose eyes were twinkling. He felt threatened by Lin Feng, which is why he had released his spirit. Since Lin Feng had passed the exam of the Precipice of Zhangu, his roaring thunder was even stronger than previously. Even though Lin Feng was only at the 8th Qi layer, he was as strong as other cultivators of the 9th Qi layer thanks to his skillful attacks. He had really mastered all of his skills. But when Lu Liang released his eagle spirit, he became much stronger and could block Lin Feng's sword attacks using the qi from his claws. But could someone of the qi layer really not fight against someone of the Ling Qi layer? Lin Feng didn't think so, and he was certainly going to risk his life to find out.